Welcome to Ichabod. I'm your host, Be Good, and we're taking calls today. So come on into the chat and greet somebody in Reason's name as we get ready for another great show focused on the resurrection. Since we are coming up on Easter, and I know for very many Christians, this is the holiest time of the year because the Apostle Paul says, look, if Christ is not risen, our faith is in vain. Now, in fact, he says we are to be pitied most amongst all men. Uh, I've got bad news about the good news. Christ is not risen, and the Christian faith, your hope is in vain. Now, you might hear that and say, okay, Brady, prove it. You're making the claim, the burden of proof is on you. I'm not really making the claim, I'm denying your claim. If you're a Jesus worshiper like I was, you believe that Jesus was raised from the dead or raised himself from the dead. You have, contrary verses where he says, no one takes my life. I lay it down. I have the power to pick it up. Then it says the Father raised him up. Either way, he's raised up from the dead. That's the claim. And you're not just making that claim. You're putting that claim on everyone else, telling us that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And unless somebody believes in Jesus Christ, that God raised him from the dead, that person is eternally lost. Those are Christian claims. I made those claims for most of my life. So the burden of proof is not on me sitting here denying your resurrection claims. The believer is making the claim, and I'm denying the claim. I'm saying, what is your evidence that this thing happened? And if your only evidence is claims are not evidence. Claims are, oh, that's interesting. Let me look into that. And I don't know what more you have than that to substantiate that this resurrection took place. If you have anything more than that would make me accept this idea, or that just makes sense to accept this idea, call in. This is your chance to call in. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And if you're watching this on Instagram, it's in my bio. Matter of fact, let me check that right now and to make sure. Okay, looks like we're live on Instagram too. Now let me go to Facebook and drop the link there just in case. All right, and then I gotta go pin it to the conversation in Facebook. So give me a second to do that. But in the meantime, yes, come on into the chat, greet somebody in Reason's name as we get ready to take calls. I need the Facebook app. Give me a second. I plan to be doing this live on TikTok as well at some point, but at TikTok, they want you to have like 1,000 subscribers before you can actually go live. So we'll get there eventually. What am I doing? I'm going to my Facebook and pinning this comment. All right. So we should be good to go on the platforms. Let me come back to YouTube. YouTube, it's in the chat. Without faith, hey. Without faith says, file a claim with any insurance company and it doesn't pay without evidence. No proof, no payment. Anybody can make a claim. Anybody can make a claim. Why should anyone believe the claim is the question. Hey, Eddie, what's good? Oh, and we got Psionic in the house. Let me see what your screen name is so I can try to remember it. Renaissance Media. Okay. I'll try to remember. It's so interesting because I have people that pop in. They could even be Patreon supporters, but their screen name will be a different name and I don't actually recognize them. So, yo, man, good to see you, bro. So, yeah. So how about this? Let's do this. in the chat until we get a bold believer who's willing to call in and represent why we should believe these claims. Former Christians in the chat, and even if you weren't a Christian, but you've heard the Christian claims, what do you think is the best evidence for the resurrection of Jesus? Try to be as charitable as you can. Don't just immediately fire off there is no evidence. There is evidence. I just don't think it's good evidence. But what is the best evidence? Even if it's all bad, what's the best bad evidence? Or maybe you think there are some good arguments or evidences out there. What's the best evidence for the resurrection? What's the most convincing datum that you could provide that would make someone, a skeptic even, say, maybe I need to consider this? And if you're a believer, don't let us do the job for you. Call in. The link is in the comments on Facebook. It's in my bio on Instagram, and it's in the comments here on YouTube. What is the strongest evidence for the resurrection of Jesus? Because I don't think there is any good evidence, but what's the strongest evidence? I'm willing to say Jesus Christ is not someone who, if he lived, now I don't know if he ever lived, but if he lived, I don't think there's any strong evidence to suggest he suffered death and then beat it, was raised or raised himself from the dead, and now sits at the right hand of God, enthroned in yonder heaven. But this is your chance to call in and represent that. All right, let's see what y'all are saying in the chat. Hey, Eddie said, there is no evidence. There are only arguments and claims. Okay, then if you can't give me the best evidence, then give me what the best argument is. What's the best argument for the resurrection of Jesus? Psionic Renaissance Media says, strongest maybe martyrdom. Like mythology said, like Mythos Boy said, but you said not great. But like you said, not great. Yeah, martyrdom claims that these people were willing to die for it. That makes it more, I think if I were to be honest, I would have to say that makes the claims more interesting. Because you do want to know, why was somebody else that committed to it? You don't typically die for things that are not true. It's not that nobody ever died for something that's not true. People die for things that are not true all the time. But I think it's much rarer that they die for things that they know are not true. But it's possible that these disciples, these followers, these worshipers, that they died for it, thinking that it was true, not knowing that it wasn't true. And so in their mind, they died for what they thought was true. It doesn't make it true, just makes it more understandable. My Unique Monique, what's happening? Says, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome in Reason's name. Who else did I see up here? Mythos Boy added a comment, said, martyrdom, first person testimonial, insert Bible jingle. So he says, I'm being sort of sarcastic when I say that, because we know about the martyrdom claims, we know how unreliable the martyrdom claims are. And we also know that the first person testimony claims are highly debunked at this point as well. The Gospels are not first person testimony. And Paul was the earliest witness to the resurrection of Jesus on record. And his witness was, oh, I saw a light and heard a voice. I mean, delusional much. Like, how do we know that what Paul saw, this light and this voice, why should we trust that? You're the first person on record in history to tell us about this risen Jesus, and you didn't even see him risen on earth. You saw a light and heard a voice, and you're the first witness. I think I was deep into my Christian experience, my Christian walk, when I realized that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not the first witnesses in the Bible to Jesus. It was the man who didn't even know Jesus on earth. Damn, I wish I had known that up front. There's so much stuff that Christianity does not front load. They front load you with the trust. They front load you with the, if your tradition is the speaking in tongues, they front load you with the, hey, this is good news. They front load you with all that so that you can believe. And then on the back end, you start finding out just how unreliable the sources that told you all these things actually are. But you're so roped in at that point. It's like, damn, what am I going to do now? Am I going to just, I can't, after 7 years of believing, after 12 years of believing, after Bible college and school loans, and I married my spouse based on, after all that, when I learned just how shaky these claims were to begin with, am I now, after 15 years, going to start second guessing it? It got me this far. It got me to stop drinking. It got me to the job that I have now. I got them through my Christian connections, and I praised God for that. Am I going to now, after all this, when I begin to learn just how shaky these claims are, am I now going to start second guessing it? You end up like Job, right? In the book of Job, his wife says, hey, curse God and die. He says, hey, we took good from the hand of God. Are we not also going to take evil from the hand of God? That's how the Christian with the sunk cost fallacy is. You get 20 years in and you realize, oh shit, I don't have good reason to believe this, but look how I took good from this God, right? All these blessings, my kids, I said that they were blessings from the Lord, and whatever, all these things I said God blessed me with, I took that from the hand of God. Am I not now also going to take what seems like not so good things? Like, I can't believe the Genesis narrative like I used to, and I can't believe the prophecies of the Old Testament like I used to. Like, okay, I took the good things from the hand of God. I guess I got to take this sucky stuff from the hand of God too. That's how you end up being as a Christian. And Paul says, hey, if the resurrection of Jesus if that did not happen, we are to be pitied most amongst men. Our faith is in vain. The good news though is the other thing that Paul said, if the resurrection didn't happen, he said we are still in our sins. Well, no, if it's BS, you're not still in your sins. Sins is a made up category of events. So the good news, the silver lining is, okay, maybe you're to be pitied most amongst all men because Christ is not risen, but you're not still in your sins. You have to now reorient your mind to think about, well, what is this sinful nature I've been saying that I have and I'm subject to? Now you got to rethink all that. Well, I'm just shooting the shit right now, trying to wait for a theist, a Christian, to call in and tell us why we should believe these resurrection claims. And in the meantime, I'm going to give a shout out to all the Patreon supporters. If your name is on the screen, your name is in my heart. Thank you for rocking with the channel. Thank you for subscribing, for jumping on when you see me on, for your comments, for the little community that we built here, for rocking with Ichabod, the squad. And if you're not a Patreon supporter, there's a link to join the Patreon, will be in the description of the video, and you may see it popping up in the chat as well. But thank you to all the Patreon supporters. Theists, where you at? Christians, where you at? Jesus worshipers, followers, believers in the resurrection of Jesus, where y'all at? Call in and represent if you think there's good reason to believe that your faith is not in vain. Why do you think that? Why should I or anybody else think that? I don't know that there is a good reason. Let me see what else y'all said in the chat. Let's see here. Hey, Eddie says we have 0 firsthand accounts for Jesus. Let me see. Yeah, I see what Abasanic is saying there. Yeah, there's something to be said about the strength of their belief, the people who would give their lives for this thing. it's typically, and for good reason, a convincing enough reason to at least investigate the claim. Yeah, I would say, like, just so you know, the theist who's watching, we're not unreasonable. We're not saying, oh, there's no there there. There's something there. There's something there to these resurrection claims. There is, at the very least, claims. And then when people start putting action behind those claims, I'm willing to die for it. I'm willing to, spark a church and deal with the hassle of pastoring and, be persecuted and all that. There's someone, even if not the original claimant, maybe the second, third, or fourth, someone believed something and that belief spread. I can't deny that. I don't think any of that is enough to authenticate or validate the idea that there is truth to the claims. And I'm willing to go out on a limb and say, this didn't happen. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or rude, but that shit ain't happen, y'all. Like, for real. Like I said this on the last stream we did on this issue. Jesus really rose from the dead. And then rather than chill, rather than stick around for a month or so, he said, as fantastic as this is, as unbelievable as this is, rather than me sticking around as a human with holes in my wrists, like, check it out, jazz hands, rather than stick around to show off his holy hands, he ascends into heaven where no one can trace him, and then says, but y'all go spread the message. And I'm going to hold the entire world accountable to whether or not they believe your message, your word of mouth. Like, really? That's the best that an all-wise, loving, compassionate, just God could do? That's so underwhelming. That's so depressing and offensive to intelligence. And I'm embarrassed that I believed it and that I did everything that I did in the name of presenting this Jesus to other people. But if you're proud to be a believer and you think it's worth representing, I say it again. This is your chance to call in and represent. So the link is in the chat. And if you're on Facebook, it's the top comment. If you're on Instagram, check my bio for the link to call in. Theist, where you be? Don't tell me you're scared. I'm not the kind of host that sits here waiting to embarrass anybody. I'm not going to curse you out. I'm not going to talk over you. I'm not going to allow you to talk over me, but I try to be very hospitable on this channel and very respectful of my callers and just have good conversations. I'd like you to understand where someone like I am coming from. I like to understand where you're coming from. So Christians, theists, Jesus believers, worshipers, followers, disciples, if you think the resurrection of Jesus happened and you think it's defensible, can you call and tell us why? Why you believe it happened? Why should anyone else believe it happened? Maybe you're praying right now. God, should I call? Would you, God, would you strengthen me if I call? Would you, God, fill me with your spirit and allow me to call in and win Brady, win Fanatic, win Be Good back to the faith? Or maybe not him, maybe his listeners. And you're praying that prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. You prayed that prayer. Now you're like, okay. and or maybe you're waiting for the unctioning. Maybe you're waiting for the. I have no problem praying that prayer just now or whatever. Like there's no power in the name of Jesus. Heavenly Father, right now in the name of Jesus, we ask that you can say all of that, but until something happens that can't be explained by mere naturalistic means, I don't think there's any power in the name of Jesus. I don't think there's any truth to the Bible's claims. I think it's fan fiction. I think the first Christians were very unfair to Judaism. I think they usurped the fame, they usurped the scriptures, they usurped the context of Judaism and inserted their Messiah into it, and then tried to reinterpret a bunch of Old Testament passages to make them prophecies to fit Jesus. I don't think there's any power in that outside of the power of manipulation. And if you're a Christian, I think you've been manipulated. I think I was too. I think my standard for what I was willing to call truth was so low that upon hearing these claims, I was willing to believe them and give my life to them and give my life for them. Put myself in very many situations where I could have died because I was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I believed God would protect me. And I didn't die, so he must have protected me, right? That's how specious my reasoning was. And if you called in, I would endeavor to explain to you why I think you're using specious reasoning as well. But maybe you'd be able to explain to me how you're not and how it really is worth believing. But this is your chance to call in. If you're a believer and you're prayed up and you're filled with the Holy Spirit and you're defending your faith, this is your chance to call in and we can talk about whether or not it's really worth believing. I don't think it is. So, followers of the way, where y'all at? Meanwhile, what else is going on in the world? Without Faith says, belief in a religion is the beginning of cognitive dissonance. The God of your religion, I don't care what religion you are, that God rewards you living by a completely different law of logic than you use in every other area of your life. So God rigged, or the gods rigged life to work according to logic, and then said, drew a line and said, this far and no more. When it comes to spiritual things, all that logic is going to get thrown out the window. And I've heard Christians try to use that and say, well, when it comes to the quantum realm, the logic that we use, the laws of physics, they seem to up. So if you're willing to allow that for the quantum, why wouldn't you allow that for the spiritual? Well, even with the quantum, we're not dealing with non-physical realities. We're still dealing with the physical world, just operating on a scale that our minds just have not evolved to appreciate. None of that means anything spiritual is happening or something illogical is happening. The logic of the quantum is just not a logic that we've evolved to naturally think in terms of. And then people try to equate the quantum with the spiritual as if quantum is not a physical property, is not a property of the physical material world. But here I am, just shooting the breeze, waiting for an interlocutor. And I guess I typically would do this if I'm waiting for theists to call. If you're not a theist, but you're an atheist, and you want to just tap in real quick, I can take a couple minutes just to kick it with one or two folks. If you just want to tap in, don't feel pressured. I'm not saying that you need to. I can sit here shooting this shit for as long as I need to, waiting for a believer to call in. Because I do like to keep the lines a little clear, because if they see me talking to somebody, they might think oh, it's going to be a while. He's talking to that person. I won't call in. So I don't like to let calls linger if it's just me and another atheist or agnostic, just shooting the breeze. But nonetheless, theists, where y'all at? Maybe you're at work or on your way home from work, and you're just not in a suitable place to call in. I'm going to stick around for a little while today. I got on at 4, probably going to stick around to at least 6. So don't feel rushed. If you're in traffic, I'm going to stick around. Probably going to find some current events to talk about in a minute. Did y'all see who was it? The NBA player who got cut from the Chicago Bulls because he had been making statements about not just LGBTQ. He also had made statements about other people in the NBA, like even Steph Curry, who's a Christian. But I guess because maybe Steph Curry has some views that were not as hard-lined as this individual thought they should have been, he's like just coming at different, like even other Christians. And then he was driving and made a video just talking about how the NBA has Pride Day or Pride Night or whatever, where they celebrate pride, gay pride. And he called it unrighteousness. Like, yo, why are we going to celebrate this unrighteousness? But I can't, if I try to talk about righteousness, talk about my faith, I can't do that. And then people, Christians, of course, can't understand why that kind of speech was seen as divisive and harmful, and the team waved them. And so now that they're taking that as, see, persecution, see, they hate the name of Jesus, just like the caller who called in yesterday saying Jesus is it's the only religion where you could die for believing in him, with no forethought, no self-awareness or social awareness of how Christianity has played out over the centuries. Like, as if you can't understand why somebody would think, like, not that I think it's right, but if there's a nation that says we're going to outlaw your religion, we're going to outlaw speaking about your Jesus, it's not because they necessarily hate your Jesus. They just look at the trajectory of what's happened historically in Jesus' name and said, hey, we don't want that shit here. Like, when I was a Christian, I thought it meant, see, look how they're persecuting us. That means we must have the right one. No, we did a lot of, meaning the Christians, did a lot of wrong stuff in the name of the right one. So anyway, theists, believers, where y'all at? It's your chance to call in. All right, my guy Psionic is calling in. What's up, my man?
What's happening, man? How you feeling?
I'm chilling. How are you?
Shoot, man. And just here, just watching, seeing what fish bite.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Out here fishing for souls, as it were. Yeah. Hey, real quick, I think I may have told you, I'm thinking of coming out there on the 25th for Prometheus's battle. Are you going to be around, or you're not going to be in town? I think you said you're not
I'm
going
to be out of town. I'm gonna be in Chicago.
Okay, got you.
I'm gonna like a dual playback here. Let me.
So if you're watching on YouTube, cut off YouTube when you're in the studio. I was hearing something too. That's why I was talking a little slow. How many of y'all have gone to check out Psionic's music? Psionic did a Life After Faith almost a year ago now, I think. But if you haven't gone to check out Psionic's music, Psionic is one of my favorite lyricists. Like, I just got turned on to his music right before we did the Life After Faith. But yo, his skills on the mic, incredible. And if you can, Psionic, while you're here, drop a link to your music so people can go check you out.
Oh yeah.
You good?
Sure. It's still doing that dual playback, but I'll work with it.
So hold on. Are you watching it on YouTube at the same time?
Yeah. Okay.
If you cut off YouTube,
I thought I closed that video.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Uh,
If you get a minute, drop a link to your music in the chat so folks can go check you
yeah,
out.
absolutely. Absolutely. One sec.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I'll be in Chicago, but I'm damn near complete with the album, so I'm definitely doing like a release show.
Okay.
If you could make that, that would be
So
dope as hell.
what's your date to have it released?
I'm looking at a June release.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
either May or June, something like that.
You did most of the production?
Yeah, absolutely.
My God.
Absolutely. All the production, all the mixing, all the lyrics. I've got a few features on there, but yeah,
Okay.
mostly everything's me.
And I was asking about a track with you and Prometheus. Is there a track with y'all two together?
Not on this album, but we definitely we're setting up a studio date like this week. So we're definitely gonna be collabing.
Nice.
And that'll be interesting. How that plays out.
Okay, good stuff.
Might be much like this stream.
I mean, so I had a Christian rapper. I don't know if I should say this out loud, but Shylin, he actually hit me up and was like, "Hey, we should do like a battle, like him and I going back and forth." I don't know if he meant on the same song or if he meant like a series of songs going back and forth. That's the one thing in the last couple of years that got me excited about possibly writing again.
Interesting. Okay, Shylin's dope, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you and Prometheus, does he bill himself as a Christian rapper or just a Christian who raps?
I think it's more so as a Christian who raps, because I mean we frequent a lot of the same venues and circles, and they're definitely not explicitly Christian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he's going to do in this battle. Like, is the Christian side of him going to come out in this battle, or is it just for the culture, just straight art, just straight battle lines?
I feel like he definitely alludes to it in his raps. But I don't know. Like I saw one clip of his opponent versus like, you know, my personal experiences of pro, and man, I don't know if the other guy is gonna walk out alive, because pro is a phenom, man. Like when it comes to freestyling ability, like I've never seen nobody like pro.
Yeah, I was blown away.
Yeah, man. And like it's all freestyle. It's all freestyle. And yeah, that's unheard of.
How does he do it? I mean, it's like, I don't understand how. I mean, it's the time signatures that he does. It's the words he comes up with. I'm like, how?
Yeah,
I don't understand
he's an animal, bro. He was mentored by another good friend of mine who's on the album.
Okay.
His name's Jay Carey, and Jay Carey, I guess, taught him everything he knew, and he was the chosen disciple.
Crazy.
Jay Carey is a phenom as well. Like I've watched Jay Carey at a show. We were at a record store, and he had 10 people grab 10 random records off the wall and put them in this like chair in front of him, and then he just freestyled with all the records and like used them like in context. Like yeah, it was insane.
Insanity.
So coming from that ilk, yeah, I don't think you have a choice but to be a problem.
Yeah. Wow.
I stay over here in my studio and write.
So you don't freestyle?
I do. Think I saw you. Yeah, I can. Definitely not to that level, but I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question on the music before I go any further. So Prometheus's freestyles incredible. Compare his freestyles to his writtens.
I don't think I've heard anything from him that's been written.
Really?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Sure it's all freestyle, bro. Pretty sure it's all freestyle. Yeah, like I mean, hats off. Like, yeah, hats off, dude. Hats off. Guy's a phenom.
Yeah.
Guy's a phenom.
Okay.
So yeah, you're
Okay.
in for a treat when you come up here.
So I knew something was going on when he asked if you had to pick one person to freestyle for you to save your life, who would you choose? And I threw Harry Mack's name in, and the way he responded with the laughter, I was like, "Wait, are you trying to say like?" And then when I saw what he was doing, I'm like, "Oh, now I see why you laughed at Harry Mack."
Yeah, bro, it's real different. Harry Mack is dope too, but I don't think it's on that same level, man. Crazy. Like, okay, so when I write, I'm trying to weave in double entendres, triple entendres, all these different references that this man freestyles that shit, my guy. In multiple occasions, I've heard this man freestyle some insane shit that if I heard on somebody's album, I would be like, yo, yeah.
It would, and see, this is how the religious or the superstitious like Nat comes in, because even when I think about what you're saying, I'm like, then is he autistic? Like, there's got to be something that allows the mind to partition itself to start going and grabbing double and triple entendres while you're freestyling when you got a crowd around, you got all kind. Like, I don't think the mind can do that, but he's doing it. But I go back to my old religious mindset, and I would have said God clearly blessed him with that talent. You know what I mean? Like, because it can't just be natural. There can't be a naturalistic explanation.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he himself might say that talent is God-given, but from what I know is this has been now years. I don't know how long, but at least the better part of a decade, if not more than that, of just constant practice. And I think people undermine or underappreciate how plastic the brain is and how consistent smart training can absolutely transform you into somebody like unrecognizable. Because like, you know, there's practice, but then there's quality of practice. You can practice like shit and not get anywhere, or you can practice in the way that is best, that, you know, that best works along with how your brain learns. And, you know, you do this all the time. Yeah, like absolutely. I can see somebody coming out on the other side of that looking like an animal. You know what I mean? Looking like, yeah, you had to have been doing this since you were born. I've had people tell me photography must have been a talent I've had my whole life. I didn't start that shit until I was like 26. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like talent, and this is something I'm passionate about. Talent is not. I don't think talent is a birth thing. I think that the brain is definitely probably more like wired to handle certain tasks better at birth. Sure, just random mutations, shit like that, genetics, whatever. But it is absolutely coupled with, and a lot of times overridden by, consistent, smart practice.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too. I think because I don't know where to put this into the equation. You think about things like epigenetic traits and things like that.
Yeah,
there is this idea of somebody just being just having a predisposition towards certain things.
absolutely.
And if you check the family tree, it's like, oh, your uncle was such and such. So, you know, whatever the case might be.
Absolutely.
I can't wait till we get to the point, I'm going to say it that way, where we're able to maybe even see how some of these traits that pop up in one generation, aside from just you know, phenotypical traits, even in terms of just your affinities, what you're drawn to, what you're good at, how much some of that could actually be, you know, in your DNA. I'm just curious to see.
Man, I was musing the other day, right, about like these common myths that we tell ourselves across history, across time, right? And one of those things that come up often is either like the cosmos and the stars or lightning, right? Because those are very like striking images that you would see fairly often, right? And I consider the fact that the memory of lightning and the memory of the stars is older than the human race.
What do you mean?
Think about this. Ever since mammals have evolved eyes,
Mm-hmm.
we've been looking at the stars.
Ah, got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We've been seeing lightning. We've been seeing all these catastrophic events from all these different angles up until this point. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think epigenetically, I'm not an epigeneticist, so take this with a grain of salt, chat. But I definitely think that there is something there that's not nothing that contributes to our fascination with these incredible phenomenon that happen in our world. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's in there. Like the fear of lightning evolved before humans. The fear of thunder. Damn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, that's a great point. Yeah.
If we can have
just the dread of the skies.
Yeah.
Could explain why we began telling stories about what's in the sky. I always say, if you could go back and gift the ancients with a microscope and or a telescope, they would have told completely different stories than the stories that they passed down to us.
Sorry, say that again. I'm responding to the chat.
Okay, I got a caller coming. I'm gonna let you go in a second. I was saying, if we could have gifted the ancients with a microscope or a telescope, they would have told completely different stories than the stories that they passed down to us.
Absolutely. Now they might have still called it the same thing, but at least they could have told you where it really was.
No doubt. I'm gonna take this caller because the person's name might be tipping me off that this is a theist caller. Okay, it might be somebody, the same person that called in yesterday. We'll see, but I'll let you go and we'll get back.
All right, man. Be soon.
Yeah, peace. All right, y'all in the chat. Let's see. Let me scroll up and make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat. If there's something that you don't want me to miss in the chat, definitely super chat. It could be as low as $1, just so to make sure it stands out and I see it. But I don't see anything that stands out that makes me say, make sure you read this. So I'm going to keep on going. And it's 42 minutes in. All right. So the screen name for this caller is Jesus. And I think yesterday it was Jesus. Let me try to remember what was the name yesterday. Jesus partner or something like that. Jesus something. I don't remember, but either way, let's bring in Jesus into the chat. Hey, what's going on?
Hi, is it? Can you hear me properly? I'm next to a road. Is it too much noise?
No, you sound good.
Fantastic, yeah. So my name on YouTube is Jesus Christ Part 667. That's because Jesus Christ is already taken, and then the name on there is Jesus Christ with a K, because they don't let accounts have the name Jesus Christ. So initially I had the German spelling, which was like, look, if you guys aren't going to let me have my real name, I'm going to kind of do the German engineered demonic version, which is going to scare people. But it's like, that's what you guys are doing. And I'm on YouTube, so it makes sense. So,
all right. So should I just call you Jesus? You don't think that would be blasphemous or anything, do you?
No.
Okay. And I'm just curious, why would it not be blasphemous?
It would be blasphemous for me to say that I wasn't another name. In my case, then that would be the spirit of difference. Then I'd be taking up something to some strange spirit of difference or some alien. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I'm God. That's why.
Well,
I'm Jesus Christ. I'm that peasant, man. Sorry.
Okay, so you want us to call you and think that we're talking to the person that the gospel authors were writing about?
I doubt you would think that. So you can just call me like a regular homeless guy.
Okay, but you're not homeless, are you?
Sure.
I don't know what that means. It's really like, are you homeless?
Well, like today and yesterday, I spent the whole day picking up trash, and so today was wonderful because I got to walk down my street and I walk down barefoot, and I walk down solidly with my feet, and it felt tremendous, you know. So I also smoked a little bit of weed today because as I was cleaning the street, I found
if the trend is going to be not answers to questions, I'm gonna let you go sooner than later. But
sorry. Sorry, I live on the street, but the street is my home. That was the answer.
Okay. Are you unhoused?
I live in a car.
Okay, got you. And is this a shtick? Like, do you really believe that you are Jesus, or is this sort of like just a?
It's hard to get
social
a job.
Media?
It's hard to get a job as Jesus Christ. You know, so
why does Jesus need a job?
You know, I mean, it's sometimes I want to help people, and it's like, well, how do I get money? You know.
Well, the Jesus in the Bible will go down to the water and take a fish and look in the fish's mouth and find a coin there, and he can pay his taxes and all that. You could do that, couldn't you?
I've basically been doing that. I found a couple quarters last night. I found some weed.
Okay.
But like, you know, I'd be great if you could call me the baby Jesus. Like, things are going to happen more and more throughout time. I've done more miracles than that, or at least things that are more important to me, I guess.
Can you do a miracle right now?
It's not up to me, no.
Why isn't it up to you?
The thing is, I don't make any decisions for myself. That's what repentance means.
But the Jesus in the Bible says no one, like only the spirit of the man knows the thoughts of a man. Like the spirit that's within you should be able to rig up a miracle without having to check in all the time with the Father, right?
Hey, here's something we've actually talked before. Me and you, like a few years ago, I was talking about path of least action. You said it sounded like some interesting like sci-fi stuff. I was really interested in trying to explain God from like material perspectives. Basically, do you remember that? And I was talking about how everything just flows basically like gravity, and then they got it translated. They actually clipped it. It got clipped as rocks are conscious. And I was like, sure, I'm actually fine with that. And I'm surprised Matt Dillahunty thinks that was good because he accused me of making logical fallacy. I'm forgetting it. Well, he was saying that because I was making an argument that intelligence is basically it's a scaling issue, and it's not like a thing. And I wouldn't even say that today because intelligence is actually the same everywhere because it's all on a time gradient. So that's also interesting.
So when you called in a couple of years ago, was it when I was on Matt Dillahunty's show, or was it a different time you talked to me?
No, it was on the Matt Dillahunty show. Yeah, and I remember you.
And were you Jesus then, or is the Jesus identity a new added addition?
Excuse me?
Were you Jesus then when you called into Matt's show, or is the Jesus identity a new?
No, I thought I was evil, and basically I thought I was evil then for lots of reasons, and that basically kind of typified, basically to the point where I was convinced I was saying. I have a personal weird backstory. My parents worked for the government, and so some weird things like retro cause stuff. That's complicated. It's really interesting. It's interesting to talk about astrology and things because people think it's all bullshit, but it's actually like. There's a reason why they want you to think it's bullshit. I guess it's very interesting stuff. But
so yesterday I spoke to you yesterday, right?
Excuse me. I was transfigured about 4 months ago in a homeless shelter bathroom while no one was watching. So I'm like Schrodinger's Jesus. Right before that moment, and I had been dealing with this for a long time, where I was understanding the material world of the SB Eve, and I was his partner. And I thought I was kind of like saying I didn't really know what was like exactly going on. But then once it finally consumed me completely,
I'll make a deal with you, Jesus. I'll make a deal with you. If you can perform a miracle right now, right? When I was about 20 years old, I had a dream that Jesus appeared to me and said something to me. He didn't look like you. If you can tell me what Jesus in the dream looked like and what Jesus in the dream said to me, I will worship you and follow you right now.
I can't tell you that.
Was it you that came to me?
Jimmy asked me to predict the number 6-7, which I thought was hilarious. He doesn't even know what those numbers mean. Sorry, whatever.
But was it you that came to me in a dream, or was it just my subconscious, like I think?
I don't know you well enough, man.
No, but I mean, if Jesus comes to people in dreams, you would know that whether you came to me in a dream or not.
If you're not telling me about what I said, I don't know if I could tell you if it was me or not. You know what I mean?
I don't have any reason to think that you are.
Like, things come to lots of people in dreams. Dreams are kind of a mystery. Dreams are water that you have to pull them out. I don't, you know what I mean? I guess. Okay,
you're putting together such well thought out ideas in terms of. You're putting together such well thought out ideas in terms of the fiction that I think you want me to kind of accept in this call. that I'm like,
Okay.
you must know what you're talking about to some extent, but at the same time, I also don't
Yeah,
want
no,
to.
I'm doing a new translation of Genesis for folks right now. I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I was made in a lab, dude. So they didn't know what they were doing, but like, yeah, that's complicated.
Yeah.
So this has been a crazy
Part of
life.
my dilemma is if this is a shtick, I want to just see how far we can go with the shtick. But if this is not a shtick and you really do think this, I think you probably need some clinical help if you think that you're Jesus. And I don't want to.
Oh,
I don't want to forward you in that.
I talk to clinicians all the time. Like I help out at the mental hospital and things. You know, I'm actually
Have
the
they
only
diagnosed
person with a
you?
working model of most mental health disorders because for lots of reasons.
So when you say you
I
talk to
go there,
clinicians all the
teach
time,
people,
do
and
you?
I checked myself into involuntary care, because I wouldn't have the experience, and I walked out just fine on no medication. So, and frankly, good, because lithium is an insane drug to be taking if anyone's taking it out there. By the way, for lots of reasons, it's anti-repentance.
I don't feel completely good about continuing because I'm just not sure where you are, and I don't want to advocate for bad mental health.
Freedom.
If this is bad
You
mental
don't even
health.
know what the Lord looks like, and I bless you, my son. So bless you. Thank you.
Okay,
Maybe I'll
I'm gonna
talk
let you
to you
go on
again
that
in
note.
a couple months. You'll see that I'm like actually constantly improving every day. You know, financially.
And if you get the go ahead from your heavenly Father to do a miracle for us, then definitely call back in. I'd love to see a miracle.
Well, you know, give us some time. Listen, so we'll see. You know, that's what I would say.
Be well, my guy.
Thanks. Bless you.
Yeah, sorry, folks. I didn't know necessarily where that was going or going to go. I was just trying to give latitude for maybe he's playing around. I'll play around too. But the more he talked, the more I begin to feel like maybe he's not playing, and I don't want to, I don't want to lend towards somebody who's dealing with psychosis going further in that. So, if you are a theist out there, if you do believe that the resurrection of Jesus is something that we all need to be checking for and blown away by, grateful to God because of, living in light of, please call in and tell us why you think that. I don't think that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is a real historical thing. I think it is fiction. And I think that we'd be better off recognizing that, stamping that, and moving on. And I think your faith is in vain. And maybe it's not totally in vain because you do get something out of it. You get Christian community, you get connections, you get maybe provision if you guys are meeting each other's needs. So it's not 100% in vain. But this idea that you are one of God's, called and elected and chosen and redeemed, and you're blood bought and washed in the blood, and all these, you're being sanctified, and you're looking forward to heaven, that's your true home, or maybe the new earth is your true home. All of that is in vain. And I would imagine that if you came to that conclusion, you would regret going another step further in that direction if you could put the brakes on now, assess things, and make a U-turn and recapture your life, recapture your, I'm going to say this, I'm sorry, your sanity, your identity. If you repossessed your faith from this thing that I would labor to demonstrate that it doesn't deserve your faith. When I saw that it didn't deserve my faith, I was out. Part of me was out instantly, but then the rest of me had to be dragged out, kicking and screaming for a while. But then eventually it was like, no, you know what? I'm better off without this. That's where I'm at. And if you're a believer and you'd like to represent your Christian faith, why the resurrection should be taken seriously, holla at me. I'm going to start I think I'm going to start a new religion. So we just had a guy on here telling us that he was Jesus. I was joking with somebody on Facebook, right? Somebody got on in my comments and was like, do you even know what we believe as Christians? And I was just joking around, but I was like, no, you know what? I think this joke deserves a little more life than I'm giving it. I responded to the person. They said, do you even know what we believe as Christians? My response was, something about a talking cloud becoming a man-shaped lamb and was sacrificed by a devil-shaped goat to save enslaved Egyptians from ancient Israelite Levitical priests. And then the Lamb Man wrote a secret, sacred text called the Bible. And each year on Easter, Christians find another divine book of the Bible inside an egg under the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Like, that was my facetious way of if you don't think I know what you all believe, is this close? Like, am I getting close to it? And we laughed about it on my Facebook page. And I'm like, you know what? As crazy as what I just read sounds, that's no crazier than what Christians actually believe. And so I think I'm gonna attempt to actually start a new religion, a new cult, and see if I can get this religion off the ground, where we where we worship a talking cloud that became a man lamb and was sacrificed by a goat-shaped devil or devil-shaped goat. I'm gonna get some clouds in here, some talking clouds, some kind of way in here, and they're gonna be my new deity, and we're gonna see how far we can go with the talking cloud religion. So just be ye warned. All right. It's not going to be as reasonable as In Reason's Name, but if you could believe that the invisible, triune, everything God of the universe became a man and did what the Christians believe, then I can believe in the talking cloud, who became a man lamb or a lamb man, whatever. So we'll see how far we get with that. Let me see what y'all are saying here. I should check the comments on Facebook real quick. Christians, if you don't like how your faith is being represented by people who've called in so far, guess what you can do? You can call in and do a better job and tell us why we should believe what you're saying is the Christian message. Yeah. Yeah, I see folks checking, but don't see folks calling. And how about this? I'll make it a little, I guess, more inviting. This is really not necessarily a debate. This is more discussion, even though we know we're going to disagree off top. But like I said, I'm not here to pick on anybody. I'm not here to embarrass anybody. I really would like to know why you believe the resurrection of Jesus Christ actually happened. Why you believe it's more than just claims. Could you please call and just tell me why? And if you don't want me to pick at it, I would just love to hear from you why you believe what you believe. And then you could just, you can just drop the mic and dip. But this will be a chance to preach to a watching world. I don't get a ton of views. I get, between 500 and 1,000 views on the video. That's not a lot. So you don't have to worry about, oh, this is going to go viral. People are going to, we just would like you to call and tell us why you think the claims about the resurrection of Jesus are true claims or claims of true events in history, and not just some people believed something and I am not obliged to believe that. Why is it more than that? I could understand why the claims would give you hope, because if it's true, then him being raised from the dead means that when you die, death won't be able to hold you either. And who doesn't want immortality? So I can understand wanting it to be true, but wanting it to be true doesn't make it true. Why do you think it's true? Is there a Christian out there who's willing to call in and tell us why you think it's true, why we should think it's true? Psionic says, immortality is a hell in and of itself. Can you think about that? So imagine you end up in heaven or the new heaven and new earth, whatever, with God. And you're there, I mean, for forever, like forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and never ending forever. Now we know what it's like to get tired because, we have to get energy. We try to conserve the energy, but we always end up expending the energy, and then we need more energy. We need rest. So maybe in heaven, you'll never get tired. You'll always just have energy to do. And you're there forever with unlimited energy. Psionic said that's a hell in and of itself, just immortality. Like if you ever wanted to, you know what? I think I've had enough. think I'm good. If you ever wanted to just go, like just be gone, just be nothing, like you can't. You're imprisoned to life. Now maybe you say, yeah, but God's going to do something to make you want to always be. So if God can do something to make you want to always be, isn't that God overriding your will? Like if you're there forever, and the reason why you never want to like cease to exist is because God is doing something to make you want to keep living, then God has just overridden your will. He's done something to make it so that you want what he wants you to want. So if God can do that to you in heaven or the new earth, whatever you think the eternal state is, if God can do something in you to make you want what he wants you to want, then God could do something now to make people who don't believe in him believe what he doesn't. He can make them believe what he wants them to believe. Christians are quick to say, no, he's not going to override your will. He's going to do it in heaven if no one in heaven is ever going to want to die. Either he's going to override your will, or he's going to eternally keep coming up with new things to dangle in front of you like an infant. You wave toys in front of the infant's face and all that. God's going to keep dangling things in front of you forever to make you want to stay there forever. But you're pretty much you're an eternal hostage if God's not going to override your will. There's just so many things about the religion that when you think about it, it's like, that doesn't actually make a lot of sense. But I'm believing this. Yeah. Christians, theists, where y'all at? This is your chance to call in. And represent your faith. Okay, Instagram just stopped. Why? It did the same thing yesterday. Oh. Instagram, it says they currently disconnect streams after 1 hour for most users. If you want to continue streaming on Instagram, you can remove this destination from the stream and re-add it. Okay. And yep, Nasonic says, I think Instagram has a 1 hour limit. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, let me do that. Let me remove and then re-add on Instagram. Is it the same stream key or do I need a new stream key? Hold on, let me get a new stream key from Instagram real quick. Give me a second, y'all. I'm gonna try to use the same stream key and see if it lets me. Let me see. Okay, it looks like it made me live on Instagram again, so should be good. All right, Theus, where you at? There's a link in the chat. No, let me see. We're having trouble streaming to Instagram. If you ended on Instagram, then it's expired. If not, and this continues, try creating a new Instagram stream. Okay, I got to create a new stream. Had a feeling I was going to have to do that. Give me a second, y'all. Let me do that real quick. Talk amongst yourselves in the chat. Let me do this. Create live video. What did I call this one? This was called Christ is not risen. Your faith is in vain. Let me just say, when I was a Christian, there's no way in a million years I thought I would ever be sitting here typing something like that, let alone thinking that. But here we are. Never say never, right? All right, so I got a new stream key from Instagram. Copy this. And now I can paste it here. I'll remove this. Boom. Okay, so this should work now. Save changes. Okay, so we should be back on Instagram. If you're watching this on Instagram, the link to actually call in is in my bio. And if you're one of like my former ministry partners, like I always hear people like, yo, you ever talk the truth? You ever talk to so-and-so? You ever talk to? I would love to even talk to some of you all about why you believe like I used to believe, why you still believe that the resurrection of Jesus Christ deserves your faith, deserves your fervor, your passion, your energy. If it's not just a hustle, there are some people that I know from my old Christian days, and I will never say who. There are some folks for who I think Jesus is a hustle for them. Not everybody, not most of them. But I do think there's so much that has come out over the last couple of years since I deconverted that would allow people to say, damn, this does kind of seem like a scam now that I think about it. Now that you put it that way, now that I look at it like this, now that we know that these claims were faulty and that this, I think very many of my former Christian ministry fellow compatriots and all that, I would love to know why you still believe. I could imagine that some of them are saying, Brady, just because you changed, just because things changed for you doesn't mean things changed for us. I'd like to talk about what changed for me and why I think some of those things should actually change for you, or what study you've done over the last, 5 years since I've come out as an unbeliever. What has fortified your faith other than people like me walking away and you thinking, see, the great falling away. Scripture said this will happen. Aside from stuff like that, because people have been falling away for 2,000 years. So I don't know if that's really the evidence that you think it is. But yeah, I'm just here. I'm just here waiting for interlocutors, for current believers. If you think there's a good reason, you can give us a good reason as to why this thing is worth believing. Or what would you like to hear me speak about in terms of why I don't believe? Why I think your faith is in vain. What would you like to hear me speak about? And I'm going to go to Facebook to see some of the comments there, because I know sometimes they do comment. Let me see. I'm going to go to it on this computer here. Let me pull up the actual stream. Make sure it's muted. Okay. Now I can see your comments on Facebook. I wasn't watching the Facebook comments for a while, but now I am. Fill in the blank. What's good? Good to see you. I see Les Hunter. I don't. You were on yesterday, and I was asking you if I could send you a copy of my book, but I don't think I saw your I don't think I saw you send me your mailing address so I could send you a copy of the book, Les. If you're there, if I missed it, forgive me, but make sure you do drop your Addy in. Yeah, I don't see it. So make sure you drop me your address so I can send you a copy of the book so we can keep the convo going. All right. So not a whole lot of action. If y'all are not going to call in, I will go on my merry way. I've been on for an hour so far. Theists, Christians, This is a platform for you to share your faith, maybe even win a soul. Get some glory for your God. You don't have to, share your video if you want to call in. You want to keep it on the anonymous. You don't even have to put your real name. You can keep your camera off, turn your mic on if you're on that tight time. Otherwise, let me see. Are y'all talking to who are these? I'm looking in the chat. Who are these questions for? Are they for me? Who is this? Is this for me? Why were we made inferior if we were made in his image? I'm trying to scroll up and see if that is that for me? I don't know and I can't tell. So I don't know if I'm going to address that or not. Okay, so I see. Yes, Ichabod. So that was. Why were we made inferior if we were made in the image of God? Well, I would imagine the Christian response to that is simple. Like if I make a figurine, let's just say this Dundee Award, if this was actually me, it's an image of me, but it's not me. So it's not going to have all the qualities that I would have. It will be shaped like me. So it's got some qualities of me, but it's not going to be as dynamic as I am. And therefore, it's not going to actually, give you the effect of actually having me. So it would be inferior to me in that way. So to me, us being inferior to God, but made in God's image, that's not outlandish. That part of the Christian story or the Hebrew Bible, that part doesn't trip any wires for me. What does trip wires for me is how Christians try to spin what it means to be made in the image of God. Like if I said this bottle was made in the image of me, right? You would ask, in what ways is this an image of me? If I said this was made in the image of me, I know my screen is frozen. I'll give it a second to catch up. Right? This bottle is made in the image of me doesn't make much sense because you're going to ask, in what ways is this bottle a reflection of me? If I said this was made in the image of me, even without getting a close-up, like I didn't even put it close to the camera, but you can just see, okay, it's got arms, it's got a head, it's got a torso, it's got legs, it's holding something over here. I could do I could stand, I could hold something, like I've got arms. Like you could see how this could be made in the image of me. I'm a man. This is the image of a man. In what ways was Adam or the first man made in the image of God? And because it eventually became embarrassing to see Genesis 1:26 as talking about physical form, theists, Bible believers, even the Hebrew Bible, even Jews, eventually got away from seeing that verse as saying God has a physical form. But in the cultures where that verse came from, they very much did think that verse, Genesis 1:26, was talking about God as having a physical form. And they thought it was lifting man up to say that man's physical form was the image or likeness of God's physical form. So you've got to think about it. In the history of the religion, in the evolution of the religion, at some point they got away from Genesis 1:26 talking about God having a physical form. But in the original context, they very much did think of their God as having a physical form. This is why I say Yahweh, the character Yahweh in the Bible, is a laughable figure because it really was just a bigger one of us. And then when that became ignoble, when they ran into other cultures that had different ideas of God and their God wasn't so tangible, and they realized like, yo, it's much easier to defend a God who doesn't have a form or doesn't even take a form. He's ethereal. He's up there in the cloud. That's easier to defend. We like that better. And the idea of us being in the physical form of God, that became ignoble. But there's so many things about the original character of Yahweh that when you see him, you're like, oh, like this is laughable. Matter of fact, in Genesis chapter 3, when God comes walking in the garden in the cool of the day, he's calling Adam, where are you? Christians put the spin on that to make it he didn't know where Adam, I'm sorry, Christians say it's not that he didn't know where Adam was. It was that God wanted Adam to know that he was lost. So when God was saying, Adam, where are you? It was God's way of showing Adam, see, there's been some distance between us. You're not where you were. No, that's nowhere in the original text. The original text is a God who can walk in the garden because he's got a physical form, but he's not omnipresent and he's not omniscient. Adam, where are you? Matter of fact, there's a Hebrew scholar, a Jewish studies scholar, Zion Zevet. He says the language in Hebrew when it says that God's walking in the garden to and fro, calling out Adam, where are you? It's not this cool, calm, and collected like the God spirit breezing through the garden, like Adam, where are you? I mean, I really know, but I'm just trying. No, it's really the picture of a frantic being running back and forth. You know how the Bible says that the Spirit of God rose to and fro throughout the earth looking for someone. That's the idea in Genesis 3. It's God running through the garden back and forth like Adam, like where are I can't find you. That's the word picture of Genesis 3. We would never read that into it because that's embarrassing, but that's the picture that's being painted there. It's a laughable the God of the Bible is laughable in so many ways because it's an amalgamation of all kinds of different passages about gods from everywhere, especially from Genesis 1 to Genesis 11. So this is why I don't typically like go around cursing out the God of the Bible. But the only reason I don't is because I don't want Christians to think I'm trying to be disrespectful or that I'm angry at God and so I'm cursing at God. No, the only reason why I would ever curse out the Christian God is because I want Christians to realize your God does nothing. I literally would and could and have said, fuck the Father, fuck the Son, fuck the Holy Spirit. Not because I feel that way necessarily. I don't care about these man-made gods, but I want Christians to realize, don't say that because he's going to get you. I want Christians to realize, wait, he didn't do anything? Like, is this thing broke? Like, what's happening? Like, shake it. Maybe if I, like Elijah in the Bible, right, tells the prophets of Baal, like, maybe call louder. Maybe your God's sleeping. Maybe he's on a trip. They started cutting themselves to get the blood to flow because they figured they were trying to get their God to wake up. In the same way, the last 10 years of my life, I've been doing everything I can think of to wake Bible God up, to make him do something, say something, show he's there. Crickets. So I'm just shooting this shit because I'm really just trying to give space and time for a believer to get the gumption to call in and say, I want to defend the resurrection. Why believing in the resurrection is not foolish, is not unreasonable. Here's why I believe in it. If that's you, and you feel God unctioning you, moving you, stirring you, to call in and maybe put me Thank you all for being on point with the mic check. But you know what's crazy though? I actually, when I was talking to when I was talking to Psionic, I disconnected the mic and plugged it back in. That's normally what I do to make it work. I did that when I was talking to Psionic, thinking that it would restart the clock so it wouldn't happen exactly at an hour and 15 minutes. And this time it did it, I guess, at an hour and 19 minutes. I don't understand why that happens. And when I get off, literally, once I log off of here, I forget about it. I don't think about it again until I get back on. So I don't research it. I think my unique Monique, I think she was researching it at one point or said she was going to look into it, but it slips my mind. As soon as I'm done, I go off and I do whatever else and I'll be gone. But hopefully the mic is back, right? Please somebody tell me the mic is back. Because Psionic just put mic check in the chat after I thought I fixed it. So okay. Imani says I'm good. So maybe they're just late. Maybe they're watching behind. Okay. Oh, and Imani, I asked you yesterday and I didn't look for your answer. Are you the Imani that I'm thinking of? Like, are you like, hey, Uncle Brady Imani or a different Imani? Let me know because I'm not sure. Yeah, Psionic. Some people, if they didn't start watching from the beginning, they may be a little bit behind. Hey, that's me. Yo, what's happening? What's happening? Listen, no pressure on you at all whatsoever. But if you ever wanted to do a Life After Faith episode, where you tell the story of how you became a believer and then how you unbecame a believer, if you ever wanted to tell the story, it's up to you. I would love to talk with you. I don't think I've seen you since, I mean, probably back in the early 2000s, maybe. But even if you don't want to do it on camera, we can do it off the camera. We can do it off the mic. Yeah, so inbox me on Facebook. Say, oh, that'll be fun. Cool. Inbox me on Facebook, or if I remember, I'll inbox you and we can set it up. That would be great. All right. So believers, where you at? I'm just here waiting to talk to a theist, a Christian theist who wants to stick a flag in the ground for why the resurrection claims of Jesus are worth believing, why you're going to go to church this Sunday and get all dazzled up and dressed up and worship this risen Christ. How do you know you've not been deceived? How do you know you've not just believed claims that don't warrant it? And how do you know you've not just been shaping reality in your mind, bending reality to fit this story that you were told? Hey, y'all, so we just got a call in, and I'm looking forward to this call. Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to this call. So I don't even want to spoil what this is about to be. Not that I 100% know. I just know that this is a person who's actually currently in deconstruction. Not an unbeliever, not an atheist, not an agnostic, but working through these issues. So the person who's backstage right now, just so you know, your camera is off. If you want to turn it on, you can. If you don't, it's fine. Your name is on the screen. If you want to change that, I'll give you a minute to change it. If you don't want your name out there, I'll give you a minute to make any adjustments you want to make, and then I'll bring you on the screen and we can have a conversation. So, all right. Okay, so he says, I'm good. Let's get ready to do this. Please welcome to Ichabod. Well, I'm gonna wait for my screen to unfreeze. Give me a second. Okay. Please welcome Brian J. What's going on, my guy?
Hey, what's good? Can you hear me?
I hear you now. What's happening? So just make sure I'm straight. Are you who I think you are? We were talking on Facebook.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool. So rather than me represent you, how would you represent you? I just tried to explain to people where you are in your process, but how would you explain where you are in your faith journey at this time?
Yeah, it's a unique place in my faith journey. As coming out of ministry, you know how that is. I pastored for 13 years, and a lot of ministry disenfranchised me. Just seeing how people can be, seeing some things that I was always challenged by. Kind of went with the flow, going to Bible college, and of course studying, at the seminary level. It challenged me in many ways, as you mentioned, in Let There Be Gaslight. It was like, wait a second, Matthew didn't write Matthew? Like things that started to come up were like, okay, cool. Whether, M and Q and P did their thing or who got what from who, all of that, I pushed it aside, was like basically like smarter people than have resolved this. So I'm going to go with the consensus.
Okay. Can I ask you real quick?
Ending to that.
Can I ask you real quick? You went through Bible college having survived, your faith having survived. Can you just give us real quick, what was the first thing that sort of made you start saying, I got to think a little bit more about this?
Well, it's funny. My very first religion class, because I took a class on introduction to the New Testament, I believe. And my professor, shout out to him, Dr. Csaba Ashfat. He was from Hungary. And so he had a different perspective entirely coming out of state-sponsored religion. And he was very much deconstructing. At that time, I had no idea what that was. So very young in the faith, I'm super zealous. And he started talking about things like, yeah, the Bible really doesn't say this, it doesn't say that. And I was open to hearing him, but I was like, yo, this dude is blasphemous.
So were your classmates just as like, hey, we need to tell the school about him, or no?
Oh, worse. No, worse. Like I said, I was a little bit more open because I've always been open. I have a background from studying all kind of different things, the occult, you name it. I've been very open to religion. My classmates were like heated, like, there were people who were just about to, they were going to stone him. So that was a crazy experience. But that was my first experience really encountering ideas about the Bible that were contrary to what I had been taught.
Hey, hold on for 1 second, because I saw somebody in the chat said Mike is going crazy. Either that's somebody who's behind, or either my mic is bugging again, or y'all can't hear Brian too well. Somebody in the chat, tell me what's it sounding like for y'all right now. If you're all the way caught up in the stream, not if you're behind, but if you're caught up. Because I don't want to be sitting here talking, thinking that y'all hearing us when y'all not. Okay, y'all say it's good. It's good. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, B. So I'm curious. So you had a professor who was deconstructing and sharing some things with the class.
Oh, wait, now I can't hear you.
Now you can't hear me? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I can't
B, if you can.
Hold up.
So, I don't know what to do because I'm all the way good on my end. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me now? 1 2. You can't hear me? 1 2.
Okay.
1 2. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you now.
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna go to the chat. Try
Yeah,
signing
yo.
On this, right?
out and
No,
back
no, I'm
in.
financing.
You have financing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're technically on it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
You can take the for sale sticker off there.
So I'm muting his mic for the time being. So he texted me. I text him back that he should try to sign out and then sign back in. We'll see if that happens. But I see Derek Cologne in the chat. Derek, I think if I'm not mistaken, forgive me, man. You messaged me in my Gmail, an Instagram Gmail, months ago, and I meant to respond to you. And I'm sorry I never did. If you want to actually call in, Derek, you actually can, and we can kick it. We can kick it now. So let me get Brian back in real quick. But Derek, if you want to call in, feel free to do that, and we can catch up. B, you good?
I think I'm good. Am I echoing on your side?
Nope, you're fine.
Okay, cool. Because I can hear you, but I just want to make sure I'm not echoing my
Yeah.
speaker back out.
So let me get people on the same page with us here. So you had a professor who was deconstructing yet teaching the class. That opened your eyes just to think, oh, there are other ways to look at things. And then eventually you begin your own path of deconstruction. So I'm curious, with Easter coming up this weekend, what do you do?
You know what? So I have not been going to church since I transitioned my church to new leadership. Almost 2 years ago now. I haven't been going to church consistently.
Okay.
So that's been kind of a sore subject in the household. But I've struggled to reconcile what the Bible says about church attendance per se versus where I'm at. Because I've more or less been like, yo, I'm cool. I don't need to. But you know what it is? Here's how I've defined it. I have said to myself and others, we need to be honest about why we're going to church. Because most Christians that I know are going for social reasons. They're not going to meet with Jesus. So I'm like, yo, if I am saying I want to meet with God, meet with Jesus, have that relationship, that intimacy, you don't practice intimacy around other people. You know,
see, there you go thinking.
But that's my problem. I have always been very, I've always been, examining and thinking, and I've incorporated that even into my preaching back in the day. And so I'm like, wait a second, man. If I'm going for social reasons, that's not the same thing. I can't say, oh yeah, I'm doing this for God and I'm, connecting with God. No, you're going because your buddy, your friend. I'm not hating on that. If you want to do that, God bless you. I'm not hating on you. I'm just saying, if we're not honest about our intentions and what we're trying to get out of it, then we're using it for some other means, and it's not faith.
Okay. So you're home doing, but now while you're home, and I almost hesitate to ask certain questions because I know you're going through your own process and you don't know where that process is going to end. It's not like you're aiming for unbelief. You're just working through things. But I guess I'm wondering, while you're home on these Sundays, so do you still believe that you are getting it in with God, having that intimacy with Jesus, or what's it like as you're asking questions and deconstructing and not knowing where it's going to end? What is that like for you?
If I'm being honest, I'm not making the same efforts. How back in the day, it was a matter of pray without ceasing and we're earnestly, striving to be godly. It's, I am trying, I don't even say trying. I believe that I'm holding to the moral foundations because I believe those are good for society. Those are good for family. I've seen benefits in my life, from that. It's the spiritual side of it that has definitely waned. And so I've been like, as you describe it, I think you described it perfectly, the steps along the journey, which is, yeah, I kind of stopped going to church, and then I stopped reading the Bible. And when I do read it, to be honest, I'm reading it to say, man, did Ezekiel 20 really say child sacrifice? I'm reading it alongside Let There Be Gaslight or Bart Ehrman.
Bro, I mean,
but I do read Proverbs in the morning though. So Proverbs, like a proverb a day has kind of been a habit for me. But other than that, I'm not doing devotional reading. No.
I don't even know what to say, B. I'm just like, I mean, the process that you're going through, where do you want your process to go? Like, what do you want to be the end of your deconstruction process?
You described and Let There Be Gaslight. I mean, again, shout out, kudos, man. Not trying to blow smoke and, gas you up. It's just, I appreciate how, at the end of the book, you describe the outcomes. And I feel like I could very easily go, well, you know what? Even if I don't know that I believe any of this, I got to stick with it. But my true desire, my deepest desire, is to go with truth, no matter where that leads.
Bro, I mean, this conversation can be whatever you want or need it to be, but I'm so like, I just want to step back and just let you wrestle and deal and own what you're going to have to end up owning as a result of your process. But if there's any help that or maybe even people in the chat, like anything that you feel like you just need to get off your chest or thoughts you want to kick around, how could we help in this conversation other than just being community that says, hey, I feel your pain. I know what that's like. I walked that road. You tell me what do you need from us at this point?
Well, I tapped in because of the question. Like, of course, I'm following you guys. I'm rocking with Ichabod, and watching your lives, watching episodes, from the past. So I really tapped in because of the question. I was like, you know what, man? Let me try to posit some answers here.
Yeah.
And then see where it goes.
Let's go. Yeah. So for you, even with what you're dealing with, why believe the resurrection claims?
So if because there's very convincing evidence, from yourself, Bart Ehrman, that I've examined, and I've also examined apologists like Frank Turek. Man, his name is escaping me now. Yeah, Habermas.
Gary Habermas.
Gary Habermas, thank you. Yeah. Examine Wes Huff. I try to do point, counterpoint. So I've examined all these different ones, and I've said, dang, man, we're in trouble.
The believing position, you mean? Okay.
Yeah, the Christian position. I said, based on everything that I'm looking at on the other side, so to speak, I'm like, Fanatic got us on the ropes. So I'm like, what do I say to that? If I set the Bible aside, then I'd have to go on experience, and I'd have to say, I've had some unique experiences that I don't know how to explain. For example, the most probably prominent example is when I was very young in the faith. I had a friend from Africa, and her family was involved in witchcraft, the occult, very dark stuff, and she actually was staying with us for a short time, and it was her and her fiance, and it was me and my wife, and it was our apartment. We all got together. We prayed one night before bed, and then she freaks out. She starts talking in a completely different voice. I sound like a man versus a woman, and to make a long story short, we went through a process of what many in the church would call deliverance. And it was the name of Jesus that she reacted to and found herself being exorcised by, if you will.
Yeah.
And I've had multiple deliverance experiences like now, not like that. That's the only one I've had truly like that. I've had other ones that I could write off, honestly. I could be like, I don't know, man. Maybe they were emotional, whatever. It's sensational.
What's the difference between the ones you can write off and the ones that you feel like you can't?
The one that I can't is because I could only describe it as being spiritual, where she legit was, as we would say, manifesting a demonic spirit. And
now,
yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And so it was the name of Jesus that caused her to come to herself. And there was confessions, and there was, her, basically, confessing sin, breaking free from her past. And it was like, say, like 5 years worth of therapy in 20 minutes. And so it was like, man, this is powerful. Like,
yeah,
for someone who had, been involved with the occult, it was like, oh man, this is like supernatural, and it's supernatural power that I'm witnessing. And Jesus and his power, his godhood, if you will, must be real.
Yeah, I get it. In your more skeptical, critical thinking moments, not that you could have a perfect explanation for that, but in your more critical moments, what do you tell yourself about that? Are you just as without a response in your more critical moments, or do you get closer to what that might have been, if not spiritual, in your more skeptical moments? And if so, what do you tell yourself? How do you explain it?
Legit. Am I more skeptical? Because I've done the work. I've done the work of, okay, there's this side, there's the Christian, then there's the other side. I've done the incredible walk, if you will, right? So I say, well, how could that be if Jesus is not divine? And I said, well, okay, from metaphysical standpoint, it could be energies and entities that we do not know about. And I've done a kind of litmus test where I've said, hey, you know what? If I pray in the name of all that is holy or divine or joyful, do I get the same warmth? Do I get kind of the same reaction that I would get if I prayed in the name of Jesus? And the answer, honestly, is yes. Where it's like, if I were to say from a mythical standpoint, like He-Man, for example, right? Or Thundercats, whether it's the Sword of Omens or it's, the power or what have you, if I call upon that, do I feel as though I am imbued with power? And I say, yeah, I think the physiological and psychological reaction is very similar.
Okay.
So with that, that's why I look at it. I look at it as, hey, maybe it's something metaphysical. Maybe there are forces that we do not understand, and we might call them different things that they might even respond to, but it doesn't have to be what we think it is.
Okay, I can respect that because that's a possibility. I would probably add to that too. I think it's probably a good thing to do because what you're doing is you're looking at why did the name of Jesus actually work in that situation, and maybe some other name would have worked just as well because it's physiological or something like that, or maybe like you said, there's energies and entities outside of the Jesus lore that are functioning too. But even before I went that far, I still would probably look in the realm of nature to ask myself, okay, I'm calling this a demonic, either possession or depression or whatever it is. I'm calling it demonic, but why do I even think that? Like, how do I know that I'm not even like preloading this experience with Christian thought before I even know that that's what it is? Like, is this person who's exhibiting what I think is demonic possession? What makes me think that that's what demons do? Like, where am I getting it that demons are going to make a woman speak with a man's voice? Do demons have a man's voice? Like, so, like, why am I even taught? Like, a woman could presumably lower her voice a couple octaves to the point where she doesn't sound like herself anymore. That's within the realm of human possibility. Now, if it's got the tone and tenor and, you know, the gravitas of a pure male, that's a little strange, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. But why am I so quick to assume that because I heard that, I'm now going to say, because that's what demons do? Like, where am I getting that from? If not from movies like The Exorcist, that, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Decades and decades of Christian lore that tells us anytime somebody does something that you're not used to seeing them doing, it must be demonic, as opposed to, no, that's within the realm of human possibility. You know what I mean? Like, to look at it even from that side of things because here's the thing, and I'll let you respond. If I immediately give it credit for being the spiritual thing that I think it is, it's going to be a lot easier for me to accept that the spiritual solution worked. Oh, demons, what's the cure for demons? Jesus. And I say Jesus, and because she's used to it too. She grew up around hearing there's power in the name of Jesus, and this occult world is dark. So even she's already aware of the lore. But imagine had you come to her and said, in the name of Allah, in the name of Vishnu, in the name of, would it have worked? Right? It's almost like if I'm playing with my nephew and we're playing King Kong and Godzilla, and he's coming in like Godzilla, and I'm supposed to be King Kong, right? The arch rival. And instead of being King Kong, if I came into the living room and I said, Optimus Prime is here, my nephew would be like, no, Uncle Brady, we're not doing that one. Like, be King Kong.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Because in the lore of Godzilla, only King Kong can defeat him. Well, in the lore of demonic possession, only Jesus can defeat him. But that's lore. That's how the myth goes. And so I'm just saying all that to say, I would wonder, even though I saw what looked like the manifestation of something spiritual, I would wonder, are we not both, or maybe all four of us, are we not simply all cosplaying the same kind of game? And if I were to introduce a new character from a different lore, what would happen to this cosplay that we're doing right now?
Hey, I respect that. I do, because it's something that, it's like a scientific method, right? Mm-hmm. I would have to see someone in that environment performing what you're talking about, mm-hmm. and say, okay, does it have the same effect? Mm-hmm. But it can't be ruled out either. So I respect that.
Yeah. Well, it's not just does it have the same effect, it's also, is the effect that it's having, the Jesus name, is the effect that it's having a baked in part of how the story just goes. And this person is aware of the story. It's almost like when you see somebody who goes into those like Pentecostal settings, and they're not used to the lore. They're not used to, hey, when the preacher puts his hand on your head like that, you react, you fall back, you lift your hands, you speak in tongues, you do something. You don't push the preacher's hand away. But if they're not used to that lore, they're not going, they don't know how to react. This person could have just known how to react when you utter the name of Jesus. And this person could have really needed a spiritual experience. They could have needed a deliverance. They could have had, like you said, 5 years of trauma. And man, this is a safe space. These people that I trust are around. I'm going to exhibit, and it doesn't even have to be a completely thought out thought. It could just be I'm having emotions. I'm having a physiological response, and I don't know what to deal with this. I'm just going to act out and they'll know what to do. They're spiritual enough to know she needs prayer in this moment. I'm just saying that to say it doesn't have to be. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
The
I feel you.
spiritual.
I feel you. And I always try to be open and examine, other ideas,
Mm-hmm.
because if somebody presents something that's legit, a logical case, like your man who was on here earlier, I'm like, bro,
Mm.
that's not it. Like, obviously,
Mm.
you're not Jesus.
Yeah.
That's easy. But if it's like, okay, wait a second, somebody who is bringing something that's plausible, it's logical, it's not out of the realm, and I can't just faith it away, then
Mm.
I've got to examine it, whether I want to or not. I got to wrestle with it.
Yeah.
So no, that's
Yeah.
real. So other than that, I would be curious to assert Habermas's points where he says, okay, I've got these, 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The minimal facts.
exactly, you got it, you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, of course, Jesus died by crucifixion. That doesn't necessarily mean he resurrected. Um, the disciples had experiences they believe were the appearance of Jesus as he had risen. The faith of the
Do you
disciples alone.
even
I
even
mean,
in that, do you take into account how many disciples are necessary for that belief to be effective? Like, do you need all 12 or 11 disciples to have had that experience that they believe? Or
mhm.
do you think maybe one or two of them could have had the experience and that would be enough to get the wildfire of the resurrection claim going? How many disciples need to have believed it to be able to say they believed it, therefore I think there may be something to it?
And that's a fair point. I mean, it could be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
However, of course, we go into, well, they died for it, right? They
Right.
they you know they die, and that's a point, that's kind of a sticking point for me, to be honest with you. It's like, man,
Mm.
I know you've talked about it. I've heard others examine that claim as well, to say, well, listen, you can die for a lie, it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I respect both sides of it, but yeah, that's one that's kind of a sticking point for me. That's like, well, man,
Mm-hmm.
they were martyrs for this at some
Why would they
point.
die for a lie?
Yeah, if you're getting tortured at some point, you say, hey, man, when I watch those crime shows and they're, the gang member or the mob boss is torturing somebody, at some point they give up.
But here's what stops me from going that route. And now, granted, are you familiar with Apologia and his channel?
Yes.
So the Apologia dives deep into, now how many of the disciples can we say actually were martyred for their faith? And it's nowhere near the number that you think. It's like maybe two.
No.
Paul, yeah, Paul, and maybe Peter. Outside of that, you're struggling to find. And Paul wasn't even a disciple of earthly Jesus.
Sure.
So Mythos boys correcting me. It's Peter and maybe Paul, not Paul and maybe Peter. But outside of those two, you're struggling to find any evidence for any of them dying for their faith. Now, as the Christian era goes on, you get into the late 2nd century and the early 3rd century, then you do see Christians willing to die for their faith and being persecuted and all that. But a lot of that is, think about it. If the word is that Jesus said, if you deny me before man, I will deny you before my Father. Even if you are not an eyewitness of the resurrection, but the word is, hey, you can't deny him before man, because if you do, he's going to deny you before the Father. You believe, you didn't see it, but you believe these claims. Think of how motivated you are to go to your death for this claim. Doesn't make the claim any more true. It just means I've got a reason to not deny him, because this life is passing, is fleeting anyway. But if I deny him here, he's going to deny me in the life that really counts. No, I'm gonna die as a faithful Christian servant.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely warrants further examination. Because again, there are things that we're taught, and we take them to the bank because we say, hey, why would I disbelieve the smart guy? You know, why would I disbelieve the
Yeah.
professor of Oxford or
Mm.
wherever he's from? You know, he knows what he's talking about. Wes Huff knows what he's
And
talking
what would
about.
they have to gain from lying while they're selling books out the wazoo?
Wow. Yeah, when you put it that way, yeah, he just did a whole tour on the book. Yeah, that's
Mm.
real. That
Yeah.
is real. No, that's again, point counterpoint. I mean, that's all fair. And
Yeah.
you know, so I'm all about saying, well, you know what? Hey, let me examine this. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have the faith of the disciples, they were willing to die. James, the brother of Jesus, becomes a Christian. That's kind of
Hmm.
I think that goes with the other point with the apostles. Um, yeah, that
Yeah.
pretty much does it.
And here's the thing, because we could even say more about James, the brother of Jesus. We can get into all that, but the question is, if you run your checklist and this is what you have, like, is that enough? Is that enough
It's tough.
to, you know what I mean? To make me say, and therefore it's more likely that this happened than not. And keep in mind, you're talking about what we as humans can do to search out whether or not this is true. We're not even talking about, wait, what is God's responsibility in helping us to rest with the idea that these are true claims? What is God doing other than commissioning people to write newer and bigger books about it?
Wow. Yeah, you know, when that argument is raised, that's where I do get challenged, honestly, because I find
Mm,
myself saying, okay, you know, the prayers, of course, increase my faith, you know, make me bold, all those different things. And is that me kind of hyping myself up? Is that a psychological suggestion?
mm,
Or, you know, or is there really that divine help? And if there is, then
mm,
I go back to my ministry experience where it's, man, I went through a lot
mm,
of hard stuff. Like,
mm,
okay, God, I'm going to serve this church and I can't pay my bills,
mm.
but I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep trusting you, keep trusting you. And it's like, I don't see anything coming through,
Hmm.
but I got to hold the faith. And then, you know, fast forward, I'm working in sales
Hmm.
and I am irreligious, you know, at this time of my life. And I'm like, man, I'm doing pretty good. So then there's that challenge of, well, okay, there were supposed to be blessings on this side and curses on this side, but it does not seem to be the case.
You know what's so funny about that? Like, if anybody put this shit to the test, I'm sorry to talk about it so
No,
flippantly.
it's all
If
good. It's
anybody
all good.
put if anybody put this stuff to the test, I know I'm frozen in a weird way. I'll unfreeze in a second. It was me. Like, I put this to the test, but I got mad because when I started putting this stuff to the test, I stopped praying, stopped reading my Bible, started intentionally sinning just to see this lightning strike as a dark cloud going to start following me around. My life got better when I stopped praying, but I mean, it was on the trajectory to do all this anyway, but nothing changed when I stopped praying. And I said, wait, I'm making more money. I'm getting more rest. I have more peace. You know, I feel like I'm getting closer to true things. I'm getting away from falsehood. I'm all kinds of stuff.
Yo.
And I said, wait a minute. And this is how the Christian message gets you. Because I'm like, I thought if I stopped doing all that stuff for God or whatever, it would get worse. It got better. So then I said, well, then does this mean that Satan's making my life better? So like there's stuff there's stuff that's built into the religion to make you say, well, it could still be true. It could just be Satan that's blessing me now. Like, maybe this is, you know, when Satan took Jesus up to the mountain and said, hey, if you bow down, I'll give you, maybe I bowed down and now Satan's giving me all these things. But I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I guess from a religious point of view, it could make sense, that could explain it. But it's like, why would a God step back and say, even though Brady's soul is at stake, I'm going to allow Satan to now bless him, and like, what did he say about Peter, right? Supposedly to Peter, he says, Satan has desired to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith not fail. Well, where was that in my case? Paul's on the road to Damascus persecuting Christians. Jesus pops out of the sky with light and sound shows and all kinds of stuff. I'm on my road to Damascus. Where's my light show? Like, this is why I call the God of the Bible book God, because everything he does happens in a book. It never happens in real life.
And when you put it that way, you know, as many times as I have seen believers have glory experiences, or, hey, I got the job, you know, you described that, of course, you know, getting the job at the school. I got the job, man. Hey, you know, I got this extra windfall, or I found this person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. My spouse came to me. You know, as many times as I have that, I honestly, and I can honestly say this, I have so many more tragic stories, just heartbreaking stuff that I've seen to where I'm like, dang, it's hard for me to say, other than Romans 8:28, that God showed up.
Yeah.
I have to then say, well, all things work together, you know, it's working, but for how long? And I prayed with people who've had cancer that metastasized and did not, you know, they didn't go into remission. It only got worse. And I've been like, well, we don't know why God does this. I've prayed for people who have died. You know, hey, pastor, come and, you know, pray in the hospital with us. They died. Well, that was just God's will. You know,
exactly.
You're like, how many times is it God's will that we suffer misfortune? And then we don't necessarily see the blessing. And then, of course, we put it all on heaven.
Yeah. The thing that stood out to me was when I had to take account. I said, yeah, maybe it could be the devil doing this, and maybe it could be God's will for this and that. But I said, you know, it's indistinguishable from chance. How do I know that this is not just chance?
Wow.
And I'm personifying chance. And all religion has done, not just Christianity. I'm not just going to pick on how do we know that we're not just personifying chance and then motivating, if not manipulating, each other to move in ways to give us better odds in this game of chance that we call life? How do we know that that's because that seems like that would explain the results more than a religion that, hey, sometimes it's God's will for this and sometimes it's God's will for that, and you could never know. But he says, if you ask anything in my name, I'll do it for you. It will be done for you. Like, wait, you talk about it as if it's this sure thing, but then my results are just as iffy as if I'm dealing with chance, but you want me to call it, you want me to worship God as a result of what could very well be just nature working itself out. I couldn't get over that. And I felt like I was being intellectually dishonest to keep personifying chance and doing it in such a way that only my personification of chance is right. But the way that group over there personified chance in their religion, they're wrong. But they get the same kind of results. They win some, they lose some. They get the same warm fuzzies when they pray to their God. It's the same. But you want me to call my thing truth? I couldn't do it.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy because I will say, you know, your testimony has challenged me in so many ways because I listen to all the Fanatic albums. You know, I rock with the cross movement. You know, my boy in high school put me on the cross movement, and I was like, all right, I'll listen to that. What is that? And I'm like, yo, these brothers can spit. And so, you know, I was on that whole journey of, man, like, they are theologically sound. They're doing their thing. And then when I never forget, it was like 9/11 when I got the news that Fanatic left the faith. You know, I'm calling my boys. Yo, did you hear what? This is crazy. Not Fanatic, man. No, ain't no way. We lost Fanatic. And you know, I put that away for a few years. I was still bumping Fanatic albums, whatever. But when I came to my skepticism, I picked up Let There Be Gaslight. I'm like, you know what? Wait a second. I know somebody who can sympathize. You know? And so I'm like, okay.
There's a friend who sticks closer than the brother.
Yeah. hey, that's wild. That's wild. But yeah, so I realized there's somebody who's been where I've been, and even beyond that, way beyond that. And I'm like, if this brother can come to this conclusion, wow, there's examination to be had.
Yeah.
So it's real. It's real in the
yeah.
field.
Good stuff. I got 2 other folks waiting, and they've been waiting for a good minute. Let me get with them. But we definitely going to keep in touch, and we'll keep going. I will never pressure you to land anywhere, but I'm here as a brother for whatever resource you need from me, and so is this community. So thanks for definitely calling in, and let's keep it going, man.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thank you.
Much love. I'll talk with you.
All right. Much love.
All right, folks. We got a couple more calls in the chat. I appreciate that. My guy backstage says, no rush. I'm joining the conversation. Appreciate that. So I'm going to have Derek Colon in, and then Zanius. Am I reading that right? Let me see. Zanius. You let me know when you come on. But Instagram just stopped. Let me get Instagram back in, and then I'll bring Derek Colon in. How do I do it? I need to start a new stream key on Instagram. So give me a second. Here's what I like about this call-in. Hold on, let me see. Give me 1 second, y'all. I gotta type a title in here real quick. Okay. And I need to get this public. Let me get the stream key. What I like about this call-in is many of the folks that you see me talk to on here, and I'm like, yo, aren't you so-and-so? I've never talked with these folks like in real time before. It's only been Facebook conversations on my page or DMs. So the fact that I'm getting to talk to some folks in real time is dope for me. All right, so I got the stream key. Remove that. Let me set this up for Instagram again. There it is. Okay. Instagram should be good to go. If you're watching this on Instagram, the link to call in is in my bio. If you're watching this on Facebook, scroll up in the comments. It's the top comment. And if you're on whatchamacallit, what is this? If you're on YouTube, the link has been posted in the chat several times, but I'll post it again right now. And I'm going to bring Derek Colon onto the stage. Derek, your camera is off. If you want to turn it on, it's up to you. If not, that's fine. Oh, cool. I ain't seen you. Let me bring you on. Derek, what's up, man? Your mic is muted.
It's good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Bro, I ain't seen you since...
I see you still at it, but that's okay.
I ain't seen you since 2021, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Outside my dad's crib in Tampa, where you gave me a... Do I have it? I think you gave me the book by Ken Ham on Genesis, which I did read, and I think I actually quoted from it in Let There Be Gaslight. I'm curious. Did you pick up Let There Be Gaslight?
I haven't.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Really just heard all of the conversations about it.
Got you.
Watched, the stuff that, what's his name? The apologist.
Vocab Malone?
Vocab did, and they broke up the book and they read through the book and had different people read the book. So I saw all of that, right?
Yeah.
But just going back, man, people should know, man, that when before you even made the video of your deconstruction, you know, we sat down and you came to you went in Tampa. We had lunch, and then we met at your father's house, and we were building, and you know, even before you came out publicly. So I already knew, you know, some of the stuff you were wrestling with, and you know, and then you obviously, you know, made the decision to do what you did. And I guess my question, you know, has always been for you is understand that you did what you did. You felt the need to, I got to break away from this. This is just not good for me. But before we get into the resurrection question, I guess I would ask you, and I don't know if I've ever asked you this. I know we've had conversations on the phone, and you know, it's gotten a little heated, and you know, you said what you said, and I said what I said, and it's okay. But I always wondered, like, okay, Brady made a decision, but why do this? Why come out publicly with this, as almost to say, I'm going to try and deconstruct as many other people as I can. Now, I don't know if that's your heart, you know, but talk to me.
Yeah. And let's catch people up too. So Derek, you are do you identify yourself as some people don't like the term Christian anymore, whatever. You're Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been a believer?
Since 91.
Since 91. Okay, cool. So, and we talked around the time that I was beginning to let people know, like, yo, I don't believe this anymore. And we went back and forth. Even after we met up in Tampa, we talked on the phone, and we were sending a bunch of texts back and forth. And you were on my Facebook page for a while too. And then at some point I was like, yo, this is just too much. We weren't getting anywhere. And I felt like, to be honest, I felt like it was protecting you even. I was like, you know what, this is not healthy. It feels like the conversations aren't advancing. And so I just feel like, you know, we're not going to do this anymore. But when you sent me the message in the Gmail, I really did mean to respond to you there, because it had been enough time. I didn't know where you had been. And so I was not trying to like ignore your message. I really did want to spark this and have the conversation. But you defend the Christian faith. You would call yourself an apologist, I believe, right? Or no?
Yeah, I'm a defender of the faith. Yeah.
Defender of the faith. Yeah. To the degree that any Christian should be. It's not like you're some like, oh, I'm going to be an apologist. You just think it's the Christian job to defend the faith.
Yeah, I mean, you know, since my conversion, before my conversion, I was on my way into the Nation of Islam. So I was heavily, you know, following that. I was rolling with people who were into that. And, you know, long story short, one of those brothers challenged me. My mother was a Christian, you know, and he challenged me, look at the Bible, boom, boom. I went to look at the Bible, and, you know, a series of events happened over years that caused me to say, so when I became a Christian, now I'm on the streets, I'm on corners, I'm on blocks, I'm building with Muslims, and it just seemed to be, that's always what I've done, is just, okay, let's look at this. Let's examine this. Let's look at the Quran, you know, so I've always done that. Yeah.
Got you. So to your question, why do this? It's actually two questions. Why be vocal and out here, you know, talking? And do I have this desire that I want to see as many people deconvert as possible? Most days, yes, that is my desire. But it's my desire because of my value for truth. Because I value true things and wanting to believe true things. Anytime I see somebody believing something that's not true, and I could see down the road that's going to lead to like some sort of trauma or some sort of like bad result, I almost feel like it's my duty as a human being to say, hey, you know, you don't have to do that. I remember one time I was in Denver. Last time I was in Denver, and I was, you know, running to the airport to get my flight. I had a rental car. I had to take the rental car back. I stopped at a gas station, and as I go into the gas station, I see two white guys in their car. They look like they're praying, and I'm like, yo, I remember that. I remember doing that kind of stuff. It didn't dawn on me what they were praying for, But when I was on my way back out, they had rolled down the window. One of them said to me, "Can we talk to you about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?" But it wasn't the Christian version; it was the Mormon version.
Right.
I was like, "Oh, that's what y'all are doing." And I looked at them with almost more compassion than I've ever had on anyone. It was crazy. It was a crazy feeling. I looked at them and I said to them, y'all know, like, we know so much about the world, about history, about the Bible. Like, y'all don't have to do this anymore. Like, if I wasn't running for my flight, I would stay in here and try to help you out of this, because you don't have to do that. We know that this is BS now. Not just I'm not just talking about the Mormon version, all of it. We know it's BS. And I said, you don't have to do this. And they were like, what do you mean you don't have to? I said, I don't have time. I got to get to the airport. But I had compassion on them. And so when you see me like doing the stuff that I do on Facebook, sometimes it's tongue in cheek. Sometimes it's reductio ad absurdum. Sometimes I am trolling, but the heart behind the troll is, I thought we had to do that too, y'all. I thought there was a God in heaven who would be mad if I didn't worship. I thought that this would happen and I thought that I would, if I wouldn't be saved if I didn't believe this. And I thought there was a heaven being, but guess what, y'all? We know enough now to know we don't have to do that. Like, let's go do something else. Maybe some of y'all can help us with the things that we do need to do. We're trying to figure out the quantum. Maybe you got a mind that can help us understand that. We're trying to help us with we got racial issues, we got political issues. Maybe y'all can help us do that, because those are things we do need to do. We don't need to do that anymore. So that's sort of the heart behind why I do what I do. Is I don't want to see people waste their time, but I'm also not like going to go out of my way. Like, if you want to do that, cool. But then the second reason is, but don't try to put that on me. Like, we live in a country right now that's becoming a Christian nation through Christian nationalism. Like, you're not going to put that on me. I'm going to raise my voice as loud and as often as I can to pull as many people out of that, because the people who are in it, even though they may not like Pete Hegseth or like Doug Wilson, they still are lending steam to the ideology that Doug Wilson has. So that's another motivation for me to snatch as many people out of that as possible.
Cool. And so that explains that. I think one of the things that is hard, is difficult for a lot of us who know you, right? And I know you from Crossover. I know you from Tone Bruno. I know you from, Cross Movement, obviously. So seeing you in that world, right? And then, coming out, kind of still bugged out, if I'm honest. It's kind of still bugged out. And I know you know this, because, I know you're sensitive to that idea that, a lot of people came to faith because of what I was a part of doing. And so let me ask you this, before we get into the resurrection question, have you had these conversations on this kind of a platform with people like Deuce or Tonic, those two guys? Have you had these kind of conversations with them, just one-on-one? Just
let me just say this. I would love to, but the most conversations we've had on these kinds of issues is so when Vocab Malone, you mentioned Vocab Malone, who got all these people to respond to my book, all out of sequence, and some of them didn't even read the entire book; they just read a chapter, and I'll take chapter 8 and respond to that.
Right.
But in his getting people to respond to my deconversion in my book, he got Deuce, aka Ambassador, he got him to do a video. And he got Tonic, John Wells, and Earthquake to do a video. I responded to their videos. Didn't really have too much dialogue, but me and Ambassador, me and Deuce, we have had several conversations, but they didn't really go anywhere. I think there was one time he called me up, and I thought maybe he was interested. He was like, "Yo, what was it you were saying again? Like, what were you saying that people need to be studying and be up on?" So I started walking him through things about evolution or whatever.
Right.
And then come to find out, he wasn't asking for himself. He was asking because he was getting ready to go teach a class, and he wanted to like know what to alert his class to. So I'm like, the thing that disappoints me about a lot of the people that I used to run with is a lot of them, to me, they lack intellectual curiosity. And the one thing that people have always known about me, the one thing that actually set me apart, even while I was in cross movement, is you could tell if anybody in the crew had intellectual curiosity, who was willing to look at the other side of a coin and consider it, it was me. And for some people, that made me they would tell me like, yo, the way you think is bugged out, but we need people like you around. I'm willing to look at the other side of things. But the negative side of that is, hey, if I hear a more convincing argument, I'm not going to lie to myself and say I didn't hear that. I'm gonna have to consider that.
And you don't think Deuce had that?
So hear me. I'm not saying that he's not intellectual. He's got a brilliant mind. I don't think he has intellectual curiosity, at least not when it comes to this, because I don't think he can afford to have intellectual curiosity. Intellectual curiosity is a danger to the religious mind. The religious mind is dogma. The religious mind is faith. I remember when I was in Bible college, one of my professors said to me, they said, critical scholars, they approach the Bible with a hermeneutic of suspicion. We approach the Bible with a hermeneutic of trust. And when I was in Bible college, 2007, I was like, yeah, that's right. But no, all it took was a little bit of critical thinking for me to say, why would I do that? Why would I approach a text that I wasn't around for the writing of? I don't know these people. Why would I approach it with a hermeneutic of trust and not a hermeneutic of suspicion? I'm setting myself up to fail. If anybody who comes to God must first believe that he exists. Wait, shouldn't you have to demonstrate that he exists? Why do I have to come to him believing the thing that I'm supposed to be walking away with? If I come to him believing it, the job's already done. He doesn't have to do anything. I believed it before he performed anything. So yeah.
On the heels of the conversations with vocab and I saw the video Deuce made and with vocab, I saw all of that. One of the things that was curious about that was, I think it was one of the episodes with vocab, and you had called in. That was I think you called in, and Michael Brown.
Oh, he was talking to Mike Brown.
Yeah. Now, I was curious because Mike Brown issued a debate challenge to you, and as far as I know, I could be wrong. You declined. Why would you?
I didn't decline.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I didn't decline.
So what happened with that?
Back in those days, I was trying to angle myself not to be a debater, because I don't like debates. Even when I have conversations with Christians on my channel, I don't call them debates.
Okay.
Call them discussions, because I don't like the debate format. But one of the things that Michael Brown said was, let's pick one issue and stick to it. I said, no, I'm not doing that. Because to me, that's the way the Christian wins most of these issues is, if I can't talk about why this issue ties into this issue and ties into this issue and how they all, then you could give me an answer for why, no, here's why this isn't really as much of a contradiction as you think.
Right.
But then if I want to bring in Romans 5, your answer to how you solve this issue in Genesis 3 is not going to jive at Romans 5. But if we can't look at them at the same time, oh, then you look like you won this one issue. My aim is to show you how your answers to how you're going to solve this are going to contradict with what you're going to say over here. But you're not going to allow me to do that, because that's not going to look good for your argument. So that's why I didn't want to have that kind of discussion with Michael Brown.
Okay.
If we could have opened the floodgates and talk about all the issues that matter, I'm there for those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, and that would be a long, drawn out conversation. That would be,
but I mean, it needs to be like it's like, this is not just a, oh, if I can just solve this one, I'm good. Like, no, it's all. What do they say? They say if you pull a page in Genesis, Revelation will crinkle. Why? Because it's all tied in together. So why would you try to isolate this one passage over here as if you can deal with it by itself?
True. True. Before we let's get into the conversation about resurrection. But let me say this. I realize, bro, there ain't nothing I'm gonna say that's gonna convince you. And I know you saying
the God that you serve is all powerful. If he truly is who you believe him to be, Moses said, "Yo, I can't speak. I can't." God said, "I'm the one that made the mouth." Right? Who knows how this could end up if God's going to use you?
Yeah, but I don't want you or anybody else to think, especially Christians who might watch this later and be like, "Oh, Derek's going to get him." That's not my point. My point.
Gotcha.
First of all, I want to build with you anyway because we haven't talked in a long time.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so let's talk about this conversation. What's your thoughts?
So I'm saying that the claim that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead or raised himself from the dead, depending on which Bible verse you're going to, is a claim with no evidence, or if there is evidence, the evidence is so flimsy, it doesn't merit faith. It's not worth believing. Matter of fact, if anybody else were to come to me with a claim based on the kinds of evidence that the resurrection of Jesus has, depending on what the claim is, like if the claim is Derek Colon now owns Subway sandwich shops, that's a surprising claim, but it's not miraculous. Right. People own things. I've seen that kind of thing happen. I might be like, let me Google this, but I'm not going to be like, that ain't even worth Googling. But if you tell me Derek Colon was hit by mass transit in Tampa, a bus, blown to smithereens, like Trump says about Iran's nuclear program, and then 3 days later, he reassembled. They didn't clean him up off the streets. He was on a sign. He was on a park bench. He was but he reassembled. I'm not even going to go Google that claim because I don't believe it. It's so outlandish. I'm not going to believe it. Right. It's outside the realm of my experience. And so there's a saying. The saying is, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. The claims about Jesus are extraordinary. The only evidence for Jesus' resurrection are very ordinary claims. I need extraordinary evidence to back up an extraordinary claim. If you were making an ordinary claim about Jesus, I've got no problem with him being historical, being a teacher, even being a miracle worker. Right. Even though I think ancient people may have just been too naive to know that that wasn't really a miracle. But who knows? Maybe that was happening too. But that's not extraordinary. You make an extraordinary claim about him, I'm going to need extraordinary evidence. And when I was a Christian, I was taking ordinary evidence and treating it like it was extraordinary.
Give me an example of ordinary evidence.
Ordinary evidence is Jesus rose from the dead. That's an extraordinary claim. Give me the evidence. There's a testimony about it from a person. That's an ordinary claim. That's an ordinary evidence. I need extraordinary evidence to back, like Thomas. Thomas wanted extraordinary evidence, not just the word of mouth from his fellow disciples. You would think they walk with Jesus too. Right. So why not just take their word? Thomas was like, nah, unless and so here's the to me, the part of it that's sort of subversive. I think the writers knew enough to know we can't just have the story be that it's word of mouth. We need to write a surrogate character in this story to serve for all the doubters out there who would want to see. So they write a story in. The story is Thomas demanded, unless I see the holes, unless I can put my hand in his side, I'm not going to believe. And then Jesus says to him, oh, you believe because you saw, but blessed are they who've not seen and still believe. How easy is it to write that into the story, to quiet the mouths, to hush the mouths of anybody else who would say, I want to see too. No, you don't. Why not? Because Jesus told Thomas, yeah, you saw, but blessed are they that have not seen and still believe. Don't you want to be more like those and not like Thomas, who had to see, but he not really blessed because he had to see first. So you write into your story characters to shut up people in the future from wanting to see too.
Hold on, Brady.
So to me, yeah.
I'm on a live. What's up?
Oh, I didn't know. I was just going to grab the pepper.
Yep. Okay. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
So now I'm done with that. Extraordinary claim. Thomas wanted extraordinary evidence. So do I. And I think we should all want extraordinary evidence, and to put eternal life or hell on the line when you're not willing to give extraordinary evidence, but you're going to treat people who have faith in ordinary claims, you're going to reward them. To me, that's a smack in the face of anybody who's thinking about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's only going to reward your credulity. He's not going to reward skepticism that demands proof.
So
that's a smack in the face.
Understood. I definitely hear you. But the question is, what do we do with what we have? We have accounts. Whether we believe them or not, there are accounts in a book that's called the Bible. What do we do with those accounts? Let's strip away everything else. Let's just look at the text itself. This is where we get the story from. The story don't come from outside. The story comes from inside. What about
when you say don't come from outside, even the text that we have was outside at one point until somebody decided that it should be inside. So it does come from outside.
Right. I get you. No, I get you. It started one way and ended up another way. But what I'm saying is, all we can use is what we have. So what about the story? My question to you would be, what about the story seems far-fetched?
Everything. The first person in the New Testament who tells us about a risen Jesus is a person who never knew Jesus while he was supposedly on earth. Paul is the first person in the New Testament to talk about Jesus being risen. Would you agree?
No.
Who was the first person?
The gospel writers were the first people to talk about the resurrection.
When were the gospels written, and when was Paul's first letter written? As far as church history goes, when was Paul's first letter, and when was the first gospel?
So the gospels were written in the first century, and again, you know,
how early or late in the first century?
Which gospel?
What was the first gospel?
I've heard some say you're frozen.
I'll unfreeze in a second.
Oh, you're there. You're good. So I've heard some say Mark's gospel was first.
And do you know why they say Mark is the first?
Tell me.
And I'm asking, do you know why?
No. Tell me.
Okay. So there's several reasons why it's called marking priority. Mark is given priority because his story is the most stripped down when you look at the synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. You typically wouldn't think that somebody would strip away things from a story like a Jesus character. So it shouldn't be less as time goes on. If anything, the story is going to grow. So because Mark is the most stripped down, and Matthew and Luke share a great deal with Mark, and they only share Matthew and Luke only share story with each other when they also agree with Mark. So that looks like Mark in priority. Another reason, and this goes more to the critical side of it, why Mark is looked at as the first one is Mark does things, especially when you get to Jesus's prophecy about the temple. Mark does things that makes it look like the author had to have known about the destruction of the temple, which means it would have been after AD 70. And then when you get to John's gospel is the most developed theologically. So you have themes in John that none of the others have, where Jesus is now the Logos and all kinds of things. So it looks like John's gospel, which doesn't share much with the other three, and theologically is completely different than the other three, looks like it's the latest one written. So marking priority doesn't begin until the 70s, whereas Paul's first letter looks like it was in the mid to late 50s. And if that's true, that means the first person in the New Testament to tell us about Jesus being risen is a person who never saw Jesus on earth.
Well, yeah. With that kind of, I hear you, right? If you're looking at it that way, you say, okay, listen, he wrote this first. He didn't even know Jesus. He didn't walk with Jesus. He had a so-called encounter with Jesus after the fact. I get it, right? How that could be problematic. But I would still lean toward the fact of the matter is, he was not a disciple of Jesus when Jesus was on earth. So who were the disciples of Jesus? Matthew, John. They were the disciples of Jesus. So they're telling the story. I understand this dating thing, but I'm not looking at it like that right now. What I'm looking at is these two guys walked with Jesus. Paul did not until after the fact. So strip that away. I still have two eyewitnesses who write about what happened.
Question. Question. Why do you think that the Matthew who walked with Jesus, who was the tax collector, and the John who was the beloved disciple, why do you think that they are the ones who wrote the books that bear their names? Are there good reasons to believe that?
I would flip that question and say, why would I not believe that?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So Matthew tells his story about Jesus, and Matthew tells his story about Jesus in the third person when he meets Jesus. As a matter of fact, not just in the third person, he uses, from all accounts, what seems like the only logical explanation is Matthew is using Mark's story about how even Matthew was called to be a disciple, because everything that's in Mark shows up in Matthew and Luke, and it shows up in Matthew and Luke in ways that make us, it seems like they're getting their story from Mark. So if Matthew is writing his own story, why is he borrowing Mark's telling of the story? He knows what happened with him and Jesus. Why is he word for word borrowing?
But is he? Okay, that's a good question. So then the question would have to be raised: where did Mark get his story from? Who was Mark writing for? That would be Peter. That would be Peter.
That's what church history has, right?
Sure.
Okay. So even in all this, and there's one more thing to add to that for those who may be like, man, is that all? That's big enough for me, number one. But we also know that the names of these gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are not appended to these texts until later in the second century. That's when they get named to these gospels. The gospel according to so and so and so. So before that, they're anonymous gospels. John's is so highly theologically developed. Like where would the disciple John have gotten the training in Greek philosophy to have gotten the ideas that he's using in his gospel? These are not things that you would think somebody in the early to mid first century in Judea, fishermen, and like they're not going to be writing these things. These are highly stylized accounts with their own rhetorical aims, and all four of them have different aims. They disagree on what happens at the tomb. They disagree on what happens at the cross. Like there's so many reasons to say, like this is not even if this was just eyewitness testimony, it's not even good eyewitness testimony. What eyewitness is going to base his account on? Wait, what did you see? Okay, let me say what you saw. If I'm giving an eyewitness testimony, I'm going to tell you what I saw, not what Mark saw.
Well, wait. But again, well, let's go back to John. So you asked the question: how could somebody like John write this gospel that is like, I think it explains it. And now again, this deals with the supernatural, right? It deals with
I got you.
Either the Lord,
or the Spirit
met him on the island and dropped that in him, and he's writing. Okay, there's people that don't accept that, right? No, I don't believe that. But John's gospel identifies himself. At the end of his gospel, he tells us, I am the writer that wrote this. So
he doesn't say I am. He says the one who testifies of these things is true. We know his testimony is true.
Let's look at it. Where is that? John what?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Real quick. All right, let me look at the Bible. Let me open it real quick. So I don't want to just be fishing and we're not seeing what it's really saying. So, okay. Let me see. Is that the end? Nope. Okay, so that would be the end of John. And I know you got other callers.
Chapter 21.
21.
Yeah, chapter 21. Okay. He identifies the one who lays on Jesus, and he says, the one who saw it has testified to this, and we know his testimony is true. He is telling the truth so that you may believe, which is a little bit like he thinks he doth protest too much. Like, why are you telling me, especially if this is John writing this, why are you going so far out of your way to tell me that this is true? And the one who testifies that this thing is true, like, why are you doing all that? Why not just, it's almost like when somebody says, to tell you the truth, such and such, like, why you got to say to tell you the truth? Does that mean you were lying before that?
Let's just read it. Can I read it? Let's read it. Sure. So it's John 21:20, starting from 21:20, then Peter turning around. See, and for me, he's the key. He's the key to Mark. He's the key. Peter he was a disciple. So Peter would have known. So it's not far-fetched for Matthew to, now you say Matthew kind of, bit off of Mark because, but where did Mark get it from? And I know you just said that. The traditional view is that it came from Peter. Mark was writing Peter's gospel, basically, is what's said. So then Peter, turning around, saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following him, who also had leaned on his breast at the supper. And he said, Lord, who is the one who betrays you? Peter, seeing him, said to Jesus, but Lord, what about this man? Let me skip that. This is the disciple who testifies of these things and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. Now, there's two options.
What are they?
What disciple is that? Is that John? Or that is John? If it's not John, who is that? Who is this disciple?
To me, that sounds like an interpolation. Is my mic messed up?
Yeah. You good? You good? No, I'm just asking the question. So it says, this is the disciple who testifies of these things and who wrote these things. Who is this? If it's not John, then who could it be?
But hold on. But what the end of that passage, it says, and we know his testimony is true in the third person. So why not just say, like, not to make it too up to date, but why not? Why wouldn't he just say, hey, that's me.
My testimony.
And my testimony is true. Why not just say that? It sounds like an interpolation of somebody else inserting that in there so that you don't get misconstrued. Oh, this is John's gospel. Let me take this as John's. We know the one who wrote these things is true. And this is John.
Do we have any evidence, any manuscript evidence anywhere in the manuscripts that shows anything different, that this was inserted in?
I'm just saying it sounds like an interpolation, but even if it's not an interpolation, it doesn't necessarily read to me that this is the author telling us it's the author. It's just saying, like, there's a test, like maybe John gave his testimony and we know his testimony is true. So I'm just telling you what John had to say. And then later on, they pin his name to the whole book. It would
sound like somebody else is, because he's talking about the third person, or right? Somebody else. But Jesus spoke like that all the time, as if he was talking about somebody else, but he's talking about himself. We see that all through the Gospels. Jesus says, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten. You're talking about yourself, dude. Why are you talking?
Is Jesus saying that in John 3:16, or was the author saying that?
Okay.
Yeah, that's the author.
So you're saying Jesus didn't say that? Or
I mean, he might have said it, but in John 3:16, the author is speaking, right? In John 3:16?
No, it's Jesus.
Okay. But even still, like, for Jesus to be speaking about himself in the third person, if he is the divine Son of God or being presented as the divine Son of God, that's one thing. It's not a like basically a literary trope for the author to start talking about himself in third person as an author. It's one thing for Jesus to.
Let's look at that. Let's look at that real quick. That's a good point you just brought up. So I'm looking at John 3, beginning at verse 10. He's talking to Nicodemus. Jesus answered and said to him, to Nicodemus, are you the teacher of Israel and do not know these things? Most assuredly, I say to you. So he's identifying as him. But then he goes on to 16 and he says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, as if he's talking about somebody else. So I think this.
Well, no. Well,
my whole point is that it seems as though this is the way that these books were. It was the language, the way that they wrote it.
That's a bit of a stretch for me to take Jesus saying that there and say, and therefore, when John makes this explicit statement in John 21, he's talking about himself in the third person. I wouldn't make that leap, but either way, to say that all I'm saying is there's reason to look at these gospels and say two things. One, they were written late after Paul. Two, they were not written by the people that church history tells us they were written by.
Okay, so give me an example, and you might not know this. I don't know if you know this. Maybe you do know this. Let's look at the two that were eyewitnesses, Matthew, John. We definitely know they were disciples. Whether we agree they wrote this, that's another story. If Matthew didn't write this, do we have any evidence anywhere as to who did write this?
No, and even the idea that Matthew wrote it it's ascribed to him in the 2nd century, I believe. So it's a late ascription.
What? Who?
But we don't.
What do you mean? I'm
like
confused.
Church history at some point decided we're going to say that this gospel is according to Matthew. This one is according to Mark. This one is according to John. This one's according to the names are not in the text themselves.
But Matthew's gospel was written in the 1st century, though. You acknowledge that?
No.
Oh,
the most that we could say about them all is that they had to have been written after 70 AD. How long after? We don't know until we start saying, oh, well, we have a remnant of this from maybe 96 AD or maybe 110. When we start getting little remnants of these parchments, whatever, then we can say, well, it must have been before that. But until then, you have a wide range of 70 AD up until you start finding the first manuscript evidence. And we don't know when to pinpoint.
I believe it goes from, like you said, the could be the 50s, some say the late 40s, all the way to the 100. So that would all put it in. John's gospel is, I think, 90 to 100 AD, right? So I would still put that in the 1st century. I wouldn't put it in the 2nd century.
So hold on. What I'm saying is in the 2nd century is when the names get ascribed to them. That this is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's what I'm saying.
So then the other question would be, and I hear you, where is the evidence that the names were not put into the manuscript?
The first time that we have
the
first time that we have manuscripts that have the names is in, I think, the late 2nd century. Up until then, we don't have any manuscript evidence that have the names append to the beginning of any of these texts.
You mean the gospel according to Matthew? You mean that title?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. So
it's anonymous up until then.
Okay. So how do we deal with? So then back to the John question, because all this is important. Because you're right, Brady. I hear you. If we can't determine that the people whose names are on these books, we can't determine that they wrote these books. Yeah, it's a house of cards that's ready to fall down, because we don't really know who wrote these books. So who knows who put these in, who wrote what, who put the story, and we're talking about the resurrection. So back to John. So there's somebody who identifies himself and says, I'm the one, right? He doesn't say John, the disciple Jesus loved, the one that put his head on Jesus's breast. And
well, I don't agree that John 21:24, the only way you can take it is that the author is identifying himself. That could very well be the author saying, this is the testimony of John that I'm giving you, and we know John's testimony is true. That could be what's happening in that passage.
Do we know? I mean, in 2026, at this point, is there any place we can go that would give us a hint who that author was? Is it just anonymous? We can't know that?
We have no idea who wrote any of those books. And that's not even a strong point for me. Right. I only bring that up because you asked, like, well, what about these testimonies we have? And I'm like, well, why should we trust it? But I do think it's worth noting that there's no good reason to think, other than church tradition, that the people who we're told wrote these books wrote these books. But then I'm going to flip it back on you for a minute, put you in the hot seat like you have me in it.
No,
let's just say all 4 of them are disciples of Jesus that wrote those gospels.
But they're not. 2 are.
I mean, but let's just say, well, the 2 then, the 2 that you'll give.
Yeah.
Let's just say those 2 are.
Mm-hmm.
Even still, is that any reason to accept extraordinary claims? Because writing a gospel is not an extraordinary thing. It's an ordinary thing that people do all the time. Sure. So you've got extraordinary claims being backed up by ordinary evidence.
Okay. So what would, again, so we'll go back to the question to answer that. What would make Matthew, I'm going to put Peter in there as well, because Mark is getting his stuff from Peter. Luke is getting his stuff from a combination of Peter and Paul. So either way.
Hold on, real quick. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that Peter wrote the books of 1st and 2nd Peter?
Yes.
You know that there is wide debate about 1st Peter, and from the critical side, rejection that Peter wrote 2nd Peter. You know that or no?
I've heard that, and I would question who says that. Who are the people?
There are reasons why people. There are good reasons why people say that. But if Peter did write at least 1st Peter, even in 1st Peter, he doesn't really say much at all about the life of Jesus. Why do you think that Peter didn't write a gospel, but now Mark is writing one with the all the information that he got from Peter? Why didn't Peter just write a gospel?
That I can't answer. I don't know.
It's a little strange, isn't it?
I don't think it's strange. You know, I mean, well, you know what? Listen.
Because who is Mark? Who is Mark?
So, well, let's go back to Peter. So you're right. Peter was an eyewitness. Peter writes 1st and 2nd Peter. Why wouldn't he have just written his gospel? That's a good question. It's a good question that I'm going to look into, because I want to find out now. Okay, why would Mark have taken that responsibility on? You know, so that's a good question.
He's not opposed to writing. You know what I mean?
Right. So, but back to the resurrection. So we have 2 people who see this event, write about the event. What's the problem?
Well, the problem is writing about an event does not make the event real, right? Matter of fact, we've got all kind of events in history, right? Weapons of mass destruction. You know, the person who made the first weapons of mass destruction's claim was a liar. Like it was known shortly after that he was making that up, but it was still used as a pretext to go to war. Right?
Okay.
Somebody can make a claim, and other people can act on that claim, and history can change based on a claim. That doesn't make the claim true.
Okay.
So even if Matthew and John say, hey, guess what we saw? We witnessed this. Them saying it is not good enough reason for me to think, therefore I should believe it. I don't know y'all. I don't know what kind of character you have. I don't know what your motivations would be. Why would I just take a claim and run with it?
Get it. Get it. So I guess my question would be, I'm looking at Matthew 28 right now. You're frozen. I'm waiting for you to unfreeze.
No,
I know you're there.
If my image freezes, I'm still good.
You're still there. Okay. So I'm looking at Matthew 28. And I'm looking at the story from verse 1, all the way down, up to the Great Commission. My question is this. Is there any manuscript evidence from anywhere, fragments, anything, that doesn't have this story in it?
The Matthew 28 story?
Mm-hmm. The story of the resurrection. In other words, do all the manuscripts contain this story, as far as we know?
When you say all the manuscripts, are you talking about all the gospel manuscripts, all the Matthew's manuscripts? What are you asking? I'm sorry.
We're talking about Matthew right now. So all of Matthew's manuscript evidence, is there anything that we have that would not have this story in it?
I don't know, but I've never heard. I mean, maybe all of the Matthews that we have, unless they're just missing chapter 28 for some reason, or what? It's maybe, I don't know.
Okay, and I asked that for a reason, because that would be the only reason that I would say I can't accept this, because you have manuscripts here, and here, and then we get to the 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, and everything before that didn't have this story in it. All of a sudden it appears. That would make me say, nah. But as far as I know, every manuscript has the story. So that's where I don't see the problem with the story. But go ahead.
Well, to me, the problem is not that there's a problem with the story. Okay. The problem is that it is simply a story. And how do I know that it's anything more? You can show me the earliest manuscript of Matthew that has the story in it. I still don't know why I would think it's anything more than just a story. Even
in other words, it's not true.
Right. That's the thing. What I'm saying is the claim of a resurrection is not evidence for the resurrection. All right. And to your point, though, this is interesting, and you probably already know this. You know about the ending of Mark already, right?
Yeah.
So the very thing that you're saying about Matthew, you could apply that to Mark. And if Mark is the first gospel, you kind of just answered your own question. The earliest manuscripts of Mark do not have any post-resurrection appearances. You don't get those until Matthew and Luke.
So where does that cutoff happen in Mark, off the top of your head?
Mark 16 after verse 9.
Okay, I'm there. All right, I see it. So now we get to verse 8.
Or is it verse 11? I always forget.
Let me see.
I think it's 11 to 19. Those verses are not in the earliest manuscripts.
Let me see.
But I don't remember off the top of my head.
It'll say it here.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not saying it. It should say it. I know what you mean, though. There's, like you'll look at the NIV. The NIV will either have a footnote saying from here to here. Okay, yeah.
It's the long ending of Mark is verses 9 through 20. I was right the first time. Verses 9 through 20.
Okay.
So it stops at verse 8.
So we're there. Yep. So they went out quickly. We'll jump right to verse 8. So they went out quickly and fled from the tomb, for they trembled.
So hold on. The they is the women that saw him, right?
Right.
Okay.
And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Now, where does it end? Where's the gap?
The last verse in Mark, in the earliest manuscripts that we have, is verse 8.
It's verse 8. Everything else after that is not there.
Everything after that we don't find until we get much later manuscripts.
Okay. How much later?
I don't know. I could probably Google it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so.
But here's the interesting thing, though. Matthew and Luke, who use Mark's gospel, for some reason had a problem with the ending, and they add post-resurrection appearances. Now, you would think if Mark is writing a gospel, why in the world would he leave? He leaves out two things that make me say something's fishy here. He leaves out a virgin birth.
Mm-hmm.
If that was true, you would think Mark would definitely include that. He leaves out post-resurrection appearances.
But wait,
if those were true.
But wait. So let's just get rid of 9 and on. Let's get rid of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking at verse 1 of 16, if I'm reading, now the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices. They came to anoint him in the morning, the first day of the week. They came to the tomb. The sun had risen. When the sun had risen, they said amongst themselves, who will roll the stone away? But when they looked up, they saw the stone was rolled away, for it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in white robe, sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Bro, it's telling you the story right there before verse 8. What's the problem?
Okay. So here's the problem. Here's the problem. Like I said a second ago, there's two problems here. One, can you envision a world in which Mark is writing the first gospel of Jesus and ends it without ever saying that Jesus appeared to anyone on earth after his crucifixion? Can you if it really happened and Mark knew about it, Mark knew that the angels didn't just like, hey, he ain't here, he's risen, but Jesus actually showed up and appeared to people. If that had happened, do you think Mark would leave that out?
But you're assuming Mark was, maybe you're not, maybe I'm misunderstanding you. So we both agree Mark was not an eyewitness to these events. He's writing for somebody else. Okay, so
yes,
according to the history of Christianity, at least, he's writing on behalf of Peter. Okay, so now Matthew is writing to a certain audience. Mark is writing to a certain audience. Is it important? Luke is writing. John is writing. They're writing to different audiences. I think we want to try and harmonize the gospel.
I don't think that's a good angle to take with this. You know why?
Why?
Because if your point is that Matthew and Luke are writing to a different audience, therefore they're going to say different things than Mark, then why borrow so much of Mark's gospel in the first place? If you have a different audience with a different goal in mind, then write your own story to that audience. You can't use they have a different audience and then say, yet they drew on Mark so heavily.
But where do we get the idea that Matthew drew on Mark so heavily? Why? Because it looks the same?
No. I don't think you caught what I was saying a minute ago.
Okay.
Both Matthew and Luke have large overlap with Mark and a little overlap with each other. And the only times they overlap with each other is when they're quoting Mark.
But they're the synoptics, so that makes sense.
I don't know if you're thinking about what that means. Okay. How would you explain why these two, Matthew and Luke, share a lot with Mark, and then the only times they have, so like they got this part from Mark and this one got this part from Mark, but then when they agree with each other, the only time they agree with each other is when they're also agreeing with Mark. There's really no other way to work that out other than to say, oh, they are both using him. Otherwise, it's very coincidental that the only times they agree is when they're covering, when their concentric circle overlaps with Mark. You don't get that by chance.
Get it. I got it. Understood. But what we can't escape from is when I'm looking at Mark, and you brought it up, so that's why I'm here. Everything after verse 8 is not in, according to the footnotes in these Bibles, that says some of the earliest manuscripts did not contain. I wrestle with that because The Textus Receptus contained it. It's really Codex Alexandrinus and Codex Vaticanus and Sinaiticus that did not contain those. So I wrestle with that, but that's another story. But if we got rid of 9 down, again, Mark's gospel still tells the story of a resurrection. It's still there.
Now, remember I said there's 2 problems with the approach that you're taking, right? The one problem is the fact that what I just went through. The second problem is, are you familiar with apotheosis in the ancient or the Greco-Roman world? Are you familiar with that term and that concept?
I am not. No, please help.
Apotheosis is what you write into the ending of the story of your hero, whether it be a demigod or whether it be or even sometimes real people like the Caesars. When they die and you write their story, you give them an apotheosis. An apotheosis is this person was so important in life that they don't even stay dead. We're going to write it's not even like the whole idea of a resurrection is a Christian spin on the thing. Apotheosis is after you die, you are risen from the underworld and you ascend into the heavens to be with the gods. And a lot of people were lionized or made legends by these apotheoses. I always struggle pluralizing that word, apotheoses. And so what it looks like is before Matthew and Luke came along to add an ending to Mark, it looks like what Mark was doing was Mark was giving Jesus an apotheosis. Mark was giving Jesus what you do to all the heroes of our day, whether it be the Caesars, whether it be that's the only thing that makes sense until Matthew and Luke come along and turn it into and here's the thing, even in some of these apotheoses, you see very similar signs. You see, I think it was Caesar who you see him walking on a road, and there are 2 people who say, wait, that figure looks like our Caesar, but they're not sure. And then they see him ascend into the skies. You see the same kind of common tropes that the gospel authors and the author of Acts 1, the same kind of ideas, you start seeing them in Matthew and Luke in Acts 1, but you don't see them in John. It looks like John was content to give Jesus an apotheosis and let that be that.
Where do we get this? The story of Caesar, where's that story found?
You can just type into Google apotheosis, ancient Caesars, and just put Greco-Roman. Greco-Roman world, apotheosis. And there's actually a good book on it by my I got it in my Kindle. I'll send you this book. It's a great book on it as well. Several books on it, but one good one. But either way, those are common tropes in the ancient world, common literary tropes.
But it's still so when we deal with mythical figures, right? And I understand that, right? The story of the Gospels came from mythological stories. I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just saying I've heard that before. So
I think there's truth to that.
Okay. And
yeah.
So if we're dealing with mythical figures, but the Gospels are not dealing with mythical figures. The question is,
not all apotheoses are mythical. Not all that's why I mentioned the Caesars.
Sometimes did Caesar really rise up into heaven?
There's a story about it. There's a story about it happening. And so my question to you is, remember I told you I was going to put you in the hot seat instead of just me all the time.
Yeah.
The story about Caesar having an apotheosis, why would you do you accept that Caesar rose into the skies and is with the gods? If there's a story, would you accept that?
No, because historically, there is nowhere in history that tells us Caesar, I don't know what just happened, the screen just got bigger, that Caesar physically, bodily rose up into heaven. There's the stories about Caesar experiencing this being rise back to life and with the gods, that's part of the Caesar legend. Okay, it's a legend.
No. When I say legend, I'm saying it because I call it legend the same way I call Jesus a legend. It's part of the Caesar story that most historians just say, I mean, we know what they were doing when they wrote that. We don't take that part as historical.
Okay.
But it's part of the story.
Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
So let's go back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at it. We looked at a couple of things, and I know you got that other brother waiting on the line, man.
No, he actually popped out a while ago. That's why
Okay,
I'm letting this go so long.
All right, so
and we needed to catch up anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. So I would say, for me, I believe the resurrection of Christ, because we're dealing with historical figures. We're not dealing with mythological tales. We're dealing with, and so we have these eyewitness accounts. And again, Mark just seals it, because even if we got rid of what wasn't there, the very first part of Mark says, and then the question is, where did Mark get that from? He got it from an eyewitness who saw it. Why wouldn't I accept that eyewitness account?
Now, remember, if you take the chronology of the books of the New Testament, mm-hmm. Paul, for whatever reason, whether he had a real vision or whether he just knew that there was a Christ cult that he wanted to, appropriate, or I don't know. For whatever reason, Paul, decades before Mark writes, talks about a risen Jesus. So Mark is not making it up. It's in the cultural milieu at that time. The story's already going around. So Mark,
where does Paul get it from? See, that's what I'm saying. Let's forget about for a minute. I'm not saying we get rid of it. I'm saying obviously it's there for a reason, but let's forget about the dating of these books. Let's talk about the story and the people. Obviously, we know, and we said this earlier, Paul was not a disciple of Jesus when he was on earth. So Paul is getting the story from a disciple, an eyewitness. He has to be. He's getting it.
He doesn't have to be.
There.
He doesn't have to be. Why does he have to be getting it from an eyewitness?
Because
why cannot Paul have just seen that this cult, these Christians, they're annoying, but they're die hard, they're dogged. There's something about what they're doing that's useful. If I could co-opt their movement, or if I could get their fuel behind, like there's any number of reasons why somebody could see a movement and think, I'm going to join them because they've got this steam that they've got momentum, they've got members, they've got whatever they have. If I could co-opt that puts me in a better. There's any reason why somebody like.
But do you believe Paul was an enemy of Christians historically?
I have no idea what to believe. Okay. I'm reading stories about people, and I don't know why I should believe any of them. I'm looking for what's probable, what's plausible, what's possible. And anything's possible short of a resurrection. I think anything's possible, but then I have to start answering what's plausible and what's probable. And to me, the more probable and plausible explanation is Jesus was a real person. He was a real teacher. He had followers. He had a movement, and his death looked like the end of a movement that somebody did not want to end. And for whatever reason, it was beneficial to say, hey, guess what? The story doesn't have to end. He actually is not really dead. You know how they be talking about apotheoses for this person, that person, that person? Guess what? Our guy had one too. And Paul could be a literary fiction. Paul could be an invention of fiction written to make it look like, well, if this person who was an enemy of the cross now is following it, then there must be some truth to it. How would we ever know?
Okay. And those are great plausible things. All I can go by is the story, right? So I look at the story and I say, here's an enemy of the state, enemy of the cross, enemy of Christians. He has an encounter, according to the story now, he has an encounter on the road to Damascus with Jesus. My question would be, because he was in the desert, he was blinded, he was away. Getting this, could Jesus, the person who appears to him on Damascus, so Could this have happened? Could he have told him about the resurrection?
I don't think so, because my world doesn't have those kinds of things in it. If we had the experience of people have these visions all the time, and in some kind of way because even with Paul, it was like, yo, the people with me, they heard, one story was they heard but didn't see. Another story is they saw but didn't hear. So you got to figure out which is true. But either way, there's third-party confirmation. If I had a vision and you didn't hear it, but you saw it, or you didn't see it, but you heard it, I would at least have some third-party confirmation so that somebody else could say, well, I guess that is part of our world now, that people have visions and God's appear. But we don't have any third-party confirmation that that's how our world works. So for me, when you say could not the risen Jesus had given Paul this, I don't know why I would think that that's a possibility. I've never seen that possibility fleshed out.
Nowhere. Yeah, no worries. And I know that that's your mindset right now. It's like, so let me ask you this question. Are you I think I know you're an atheist, right?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Because I always thought, is he a skeptic or is he just an atheist? Are you a little bit of both? I don't know. Because you still talk like I'm still open. If God shows me,
I'm open to all true things, but I'm going to be a skeptic of every claim I hear. I'm never again in my life ever going to jump out the window on a claim. I just think that's a foolish way to live. And I look back at my past life and I say, not past life like I lived before, but my life as a Christian.
Yeah.
I say my epistemology, my bar for what I'm going to accept as true was so low, embarrassingly low. And the skeptic is not somebody who's not going to believe anything. The skeptic is the person who's going to raise their epistemology and say, I'm going to need more. Whatever the level of the claim is, I need supporting evidence to that level. If your claim is here, you got a new dog. Oh, well, then the level of evidence, what's your dog's name? If you take too long to think of the dog's name, I'm not going to believe you. But you give me a name right away. That's all the evidence I need, because I don't think you're an untrustworthy person. So you give me a low-level claim, I'm going to take low-level evidence. You give me a high-level claim, I'm going to need higher evidence than that. Now, and a God who would send me to hell for that kind of standard is an asshole. I will roast gladly, saying at least I'm not with the asshole.
The real you's coming out. See, so I'm hearing
this has been the real me the whole time.
I know. I'm messing with you, Brady. So what I'm saying is, in the realm of miracles, right? Okay. There's some people who don't believe in miracles. The resurrection would be considered a miracle, right? Like people don't rise from the dead, right? And he rose himself from the dead. The stone was moved away. An angel sat on the stone. The whole story, it lies in the realm of miracles. Throughout the Gospels, we see miracles at his hands, right? And I know, you've talked about this because I've heard you on other shows about, things that were considered miracles were really things that, the average, I'm putting it in my own words, but the average person, would have seen it. And the ancient world would have thought, oh, that's a miracle. When in reality, it really wasn't a miracle. This is a little different. This is, 500 people claim they saw him at the same time.
No. Oh. You've got one person telling you that 500 people saw him at the same time.
Right. Okay.
Once again, it's a claim. It's a claim about claims. Like the further you look into it, the more removed you get from, wait, what's the evidence for this? 500 people. No, one person told me
where's
500 people.
Where's that?
1 Corinthians 15, I think it is. 1 Corinthians something.
Let me look at it. Let me just look at it. Just see if I can find that verse. 1 Corinthians, you said 15. Let's see.
I think
okay, so. The risen Christ. Yeah, the risen Christ.
15:6.
15:6. Okay. So You mind if I read from verse 1?
Sure. It's all good.
Is that cool?
Yep.
It says, moreover, brethren, I declare to you the gospel which I preached to you, which you also received, and which you stand, by which also you are saved, if you hold fast that word which I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I delivered to you first of all that which I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the scriptures, and that he was seen by Cephas, then by the 12. After that, he was seen by over 500 brethren at once. Stop right there. So he was seen by Cephas. Who's Cephas?
Peter.
Peter. Okay. There's an eyewitness. So all I'm saying.
Wait. Because even before you go any further, remember I told you, Paul is the first person to tell us about a risen Jesus being seen by people.
But again,
now hold on, wait. No.
You're basing that on the dating of the document.
But here's the deal.
Let's get rid of that.
But Mark, who by all accounts looks like the first gospel written, Mark has women going to the tomb. The women don't see him. Matthew and Luke have women going to the tomb. The women see him. But those are late stories. You're talking after maybe 70, 80 AD. The first person who tells us about this is Paul. Paul doesn't mention the women. Paul says first seen by Peter. So you've got different accounts, even just in what you just read, first seen by Peter, then the 12. Go ahead.
It doesn't say, let me read it again. Verse 4, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the scriptures, and that he was seen by Cephas, then by the 12. After that, he was seen by over 500 brethren at once, whom the greater part remain to the present. So there was still some eyewitnesses, but to say, it doesn't say he was first seen by Peter. It just says he was seen by Peter. It doesn't say he was first.
Okay.
So I'm just looking for the word first.
I got you. So the 500 witnesses, you're willing to, just on the strength that Paul says that, count 513 witnesses, right? Paul, the 12, and the 500.
No, I'm not. Okay. No. So, I would hope anybody would believe this. I don't just read something and I'm very analytical. Like, you got to show me. Before I came to Christ, that was my problem. It's like, I can't believe that. I can't believe that. I went through all that. All right. I didn't go through the arguments, through the stuff you was wrestling with, because I hadn't been exposed to it yet. But what I'm saying is this, as I just read it over and over, I'm saying, okay, Peter, then the 12, then over 500 who are still, some are still with us. So who are these people? So in other words, these are people talking about this at that time. They're talking about what's happening. Let's remove the dating of the books for a minute. Of course, we don't remove them, but let's remove them for a minute and just look at the chronology of the disciples are before Paul. So again, Paul is hearing these stories from the disciples. He's not hearing them from anybody else. He has to be, because it says it. Maybe I'm missing something.
No, well, the question I think becomes, he says he was seen by Cephas, then the 12, and then 500 others, some who are still alive to this day. The question I have for you is, so like the claim is like astonishing. I'm not saying that it's not an astonishing claim, but anybody can write anything. Why believe it just because it's written? I think the problem, like even when you were like considering Nation of Islam and whether you were going through the scriptures and all that, To me, the issue is not just that, oh, you saw this in the text and some of you challenged them to show you this in the text. To me, the issue is that you thought there was something sacred about these texts in the first place, such that if they could just show it to you in the text, then you would like, why is showing you something in a text convincing to you? If anybody can write anything, why would that be convincing?
So, long story short, that wasn't convincing to me.
Okay.
My man, you know, again, only reason I was going to join the nation was because of what I saw in the men, what I needed as a young man. I saw discipline. I wasn't, if I'm honest with you, it wasn't about the religion. It was about the discipline that I saw in these men that attracted me. Right? He wasn't reading the Quran to me. I wasn't, none of that. But he challenged me, not based on the Quran. He challenged me on the Bible only because I told him my mother's a Christian. And he's like, I guarantee you, if you go look at that book, you're going to find a whole bunch. So I just stopped. I took him on the challenge. I wasn't looking for nothing. I wasn't, and I'm not saying some mysterious thing jumped off the page.
Gotcha.
None of that. But as I started again, as somebody who's, I like to consider myself a deep thinker, somebody who is very analytical. Type A personality, very okay. That don't sound right. Why does he say it here, but then over here, this seems like a contradiction? So I'm digging, I'm looking. Okay, why would that not be a contradiction? Okay, you mentioned some things, the women didn't, all of that. So as I look at this verse, as I look at Mark's ending of the gospel, I can't help but see, according to the verse, according to this, the only place we get the story of the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the Bible. There's no extra stories. The story comes from the Bible. So if I'm looking at the Bible and being fair and saying, all right, I'm going to let me get it from the Bible. Let me not look nowhere else. What does the Bible say? Does it teach that? Seems to me it does. It seems to me Paul got this from them. Never mind when the books were written, but who were the people? These are the disciples. He wasn't a disciple. 2 + 2 is 4. To me, that's how I look at it.
Right. I guess and I appreciate that. Yeah. I'm still struggling with, okay, even if Jesus's real earthly disciples wrote the Gospels, even if all 4 were written by earthly disciples, why should I believe their account? And why do you?
Again, for me, and you've heard this, you've been in the game for a minute, brother. You've been a Christian for a while, so you know what it is, right? For me, Jesus changed my life, right? The only way I could explain the change in my life, is an encounter with the Lord, and I know, again, you've been in this for a minute and you've heard this. And so when I look at what he's done for me and him changing my life from the man I was to the man I've become, not perfect, still a work in progress, all that. And then I look at the verses and the scriptures through the lens of an apologist, through the lens of somebody who wants to know, listen, man, am I being taken for a ride? Is this bullcrap? So I'm digging through this, and I think that's going to be for the rest of my life. And any honest Christian, don't tell me there's not Christians who read this and at times get their faith shaken because they're like, how did that happen? I can't. That's always, I've been through that numerous times and still go through it. I don't think that's wrong. I think so for me, why do I trust it? Number one, for what he did for me, but number two, because as I look at the story and I do the exegesis and I look verse by verse, line by line, comparing scripture with scripture, are there difficult things? Yeah, absolutely. There's difficult things that I still don't understand, still wrestling with. But that doesn't convince me enough to say,
yeah,
I'm going to throw that away.
No, I get it. I get it. Hey, would you do this? If I sent you a copy of Let There Be Gaslight, would you read it? And then maybe we could, like, if you want, we could chop it up either online or offline, just going through certain sections. Because it seems to me, if somebody puts a reasonable challenge in front of you, you at least are going to look at why is this challenge reasonable or not so reasonable, and then you'll have your answer for it, like you did when we were talking back in the day. Beautiful. I think I bring up some really good challenges that maybe you're just going to come up with better answers for, or maybe it will give you more to think. Like, man, am I being taken for a ride here? I would love to send it to you and we can chop it up about it.
Let's do that. I would love it. Cool. I would love it. Let's do it. I promise to read it all. I'm gonna take some notes, and we'll do that.
I'll email you.
Okay. So you still got my email?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, still got it. We're good. Hey, but thank you for calling. Good to reconnect with you, and I look forward to chopping up with you next.
Always, bro. We'll talk soon.
Much love, man.
All right,
peace.
Man. Much love.
All right, y'all. It's 3 hours and 30 minutes, and I typically will not belabor a call that long, but like I said, when I talk to somebody that I've got history with, I want to try to give those people just, like, my heart is in this. Like he asked me, why do I do this? I'm doing for other people what I wish somebody would have done for me. If somebody would have sat with me back in 2005, 2010, and tried to show me, like, yo, you don't have to, there's reasons why, here's how you can know you're being taken for a ride. Now, maybe you still want to have faith after I expose this to you. Maybe you still want to, try to find ways to, but at least know these are the things that should point you in that direction. I wish somebody would have sat with me a decade prior to when I finally was like, yo, like, what? And so that's why I spend the kind of time, not to say that I know, what's going to happen with, if somebody's going to take this and run a certain direction with it, but I think it's worth being exposed to these issues. All right, it's been 3.5 hours. If there's nobody else who's been waiting to call, there's somebody who was waiting, and he said, "I'll be back." I thought he was going to dip. He said, "I'll be back." If you were the one that said, "I'll be back," this is your chance to come back. Otherwise, somebody else can jump in and take the slot, or I can begin to wind down because I am getting hungry here. I don't know how Deconstruction Zone sits there for 6-7 hours at a time doing it. Let me see. Let me look at Facebook real quick to see what the comments are. Let me refresh this real quick. Some days it'd be a lot of action on Facebook, and then some days it'd be like 3 people watching. So I don't know what to make of that. Can I get to the comments? Okay. All right. Last call for alcohol. Is there anybody that wants to call in? This is your chance. What's today? Today is, okay, I'll be back on Thursday with exit strategy. And I think that's all that's popping off this week. But once again, I give a shout out to all these folks here. If you are a Patreon supporter, definitely appreciate you. Thanks so much for rocking with the channel. If you're not a Patreon supporter, the link will be in the description of the video. If you're like, hey, post the link. I'm trying to get in here, but post the link. The link is in the chat. I just posted it again. But if nobody's going to take me up on the opportunity to chat, I'm going to go and enjoy the evening. What say ye? I'll be back on doing these live call-ins Mondays and Tuesdays. So if you don't catch me today, you can catch me Monday or Tuesday of next week. All right. I don't see anybody jumping to get in, so I'm going to get off. Hey, much love, y'all. Have a good one. I'll catch y'all on the next episode. Peace.